I'm waiting for my recording software to stop. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Anyway, no, I know you're. I hit the button at the right time, but you know. Welcome to Contra Gentile Season 3, Episode 24.
Wow.
Yeah, 20. There's that. It's number 88 or something. In total.
Man, we're gonna hit our 100th pretty
Waiting
soon.
for my.
We're
Got
gonna hit
my
it before the
recording
season
software to stop. Yeah,
Okay.
there we go. Okay.
Yeah,
That was anyway. That was shocking. I was using the computer to monitor the feed, and then the audio kicked in like 30-second delay. I'm like, oh my god, who's talking in another microphone? Anyway, how you doing?
I'm doing.
Oh,
all right.
we're just doing our own.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Let's just swap because that one's almost empty.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I had so much caffeine earlier today. I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack. And it's like I can't eat enough to make it stop.
Oh yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah,
Hell yeah, baby time.
Because the eating would help, right?
Most of the time, but this was
alcohol?
so much caffeine. I did it.
What were you drinking? Just
I had a energy drink thing, this like sugar-free thing this morning.
Yeah.
But then I thought I was fine, and then I had some cold brew, which is extremely caffeinated. But like I thought I was over the hump. There's something about coffee, that makes me feel more wired physically than like energy drinks do with more caffeine in them.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's a.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but like this like energy drink with like 200 milligrams of caffeine, which is objectively a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
But
is that not more than coffee?
No, it's way more than coffee.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, for the same volume of coffee, it's about 90 milligrams, so it's an over double.
Yeah.
But I don't feel as like.
Yeah.
Dead. Yeah.
Do you think that genetics plays a role in that?
Maybe.
Because I often wonder like why coffee has no effect on me, and I know in South America. Coffee was consumed by generations. Like my mom said she was drinking it since she was a little girl because nobody really drinks water over there because water is dirty and for animals. And so they normally drink either fruit juices, alcohol, or coffee. And then they have like, not condensed, evaporated milk. Like they just drink evaporated milk and all that shit. So it's, and so I wonder why coffee really has zero effect on me, but other things have an effect
like
on
what?
me. Chai tea
like wigs you out?
Yeah, I'm like I get a weird rush to the head.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
Like black tea doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, but for me tea does, but coffee, I could drink like 4 cups and I feel nothing.
Yeah, coffee, if I have too much, I go into this. If I have too much coffee, if I'm like right like I'm getting like all jittery.
Really?
Again. Yeah.
My stomach will hurt if I eat nothing. I have like 3 cups of coffee, but that's the extent. But I also think
it's also it's acid.
Yeah, the acid. Yeah.
No, it's if I have too much coffee, my over caffeinated response is to go in this like doom dread panic. And like I'm gonna die. Like I feel like I just want to die. And I just get super depressed and doomy. Yeah, it's horrible.
Damn.
But like I know where the line is. But with that other. Just drink thing with just pure caffeine, there's nothing else in it. Yeah, because obviously like good coffee is going to have a bunch of other stuff in it that has some kind of psychoactive effect on that might influence the way the caffeine interacts. But damn. It's like out of my mind. I'm coming back though. I just keep going. I'll start like talking and then I talk so fast that I like lose it.
Right. Yeah. How is this going to work though? Since you had an upper and then the downer of wine, is that?
We'll see. We'll see. It's an experiment.
Yeah, you have a heart attack on camera.
Yeah, it'll be me dying at the peak of my ability for a noble cause. Whatever he says. You know, this is as much as I can do. I'm going out in a blaze of glory for my family and the community. Anyway, today we're going to be discussing Bronze Age Mindset by Bronze Age Pervert.
Yes.
And what I think will be interesting about this is you have no idea who Bronze Age Pervert is.
No.
I don't remember exactly when he came to prominence, but he's essentially a kind of a major figure in the return kind of community. He was like a, the whole book is like a screed against the emasculization and infantilization of men and stuff. Yeah. And he's very much, he and his followers post like physique photos and like videos of men doing masculine things, and it's just kind of a, you know, become monkey, return to ape, like kind of thing. Like be as primitive as possible,
right?
Because that's what man is supposed to be, and like, you know,
I
mean, you read it, you know.
Oh, right, yeah.
But it'll be interesting because I think this is going to be like an assessment of the work 4 years after it came out.
Yeah, I think it was 2018 when I saw that. When I downloaded the PDF.
But it'll be interesting because I was aware of him, but I wasn't even on Twitter until like 2020 or something. So like I was only kind of aware of him downstream.
So he's not dominant on Twitter anymore at all?
I don't think he is. I don't think his account is active.
Really?
Yeah, he doesn't have an account anymore or anything.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No one knows who he is.
Yeah. Is there any theories?
He's Croatian or like Romanian or something.
Yeah.
He's like southeastern European of some kind.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if the weird like no definite article writing is a way to kind of conceal that.
At first, when I was reading it, it reminded me of that that episode in The Office where Kevin tries to save time by saying,
save time by say less word.
I was like, is the whole thing gonna read like this?
It does.
And I started laughing hysterically. Like, wow, I'm actually enjoying this. I think before we get into the specific parts, the one thing that really did surprise me, and I think anybody who listened from the very beginning, like even the unreleased episodes,
the real fans, I still haven't put those up. I apologize to everybody.
That it's funny that we covered a lot of this. I think that at the episode we actually covered the most with this kind of information was I don't think he's a friend of the podcast anymore. He might have been one of the Jack crowd, but I think his name was, he had like a weird stash, kind of dumpy.
What? Why would you say that about someone publicly?
What? I don't mean like insulting. I just mean the way that he is, right?
I don't remember.
Where's he? He was one. He was before we had Illich and them on.
Was it? Like there was Barrett.
It wasn't Barrett.
Brendan.
I think it was.
Why
Brendan.
would you call Brady so nice?
Well, yeah, no, I didn't mean that. I just mean like.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the wrong word. I thought that was like a nice word.
No, dumpy's not a nice word.
It isn't okay. Yes,
oh my God.
Yes. I just meant like, like he was talking about.
Dude.
Yeah, he was talking about how he struggled getting women and all that stuff. Yeah. And so like a lot of the podcast was actually about masculinity. I remember this episode quite a bit.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And a lot of things that he was talking about was what we discussed there about the pussification of men. Yeah. The one thing you could ask Amanda, that the term that he kept using that I coined back, I think it was 1999, was faggotry.
Yeah.
Like I was saying that for a while. I think even before that, but I was like, no, faggotry is a better terminology to speak of this, because I think there's a distinction
nerdishness and faggotry.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, I've been saying that since high school. But anyways, what I found interesting was that a lot of things that he did discuss, especially about masculinity and the false masculinity that you find. Because remember, I think I was talking about how a lot of people were using things in order to get pussy, but they weren't really actually
that
engaging masculinity. Yeah. So like people who I'm going to feed these kids in Africa to put Facebook pictures up with these little African kids so I get pussy or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or like I'm saving the environment. Like all these guys, they're still pussified men because they're actually not engaging with actual masculinity. They're engaging. Yeah. And so I just remember some of these early episodes, we talked a lot about it. And so reading this, I just started
homosexuality.
And there's a whole thing about it. Yeah. In which I think a lot of the ideas intersect with what we're saying. That we were saying. I think the difference is that, well, it isn't really too much of a difference. So he was saying that with fags, that they are rejecting the false form of masculinity. Yeah. And by rejecting the false form of masculinity, they're kind of seeking something else. And so the way that you and I kind of worded that was that they're hyper masculine, that they're actually seeking masculinity. Yeah. And so they have certain masculine traits about them that are more hyper and excel. And he talks about how these people normally in the past would have been great, but they've simply become sodomites now. Yeah.
But I think it's his is slightly different.
It is,
because he would say he was not. We were saying that homosexuality as we know it at all is fake. Mm-hmm. He was saying that homosexuality as we know it existed in small numbers on the fringes.
Yes,
which is a different.
It is.
That's a different.
But we were saying how some of these saints if they were now, would
be like gay guys.
Yes, yeah, they were trying to indoctrinate them.
Absolutely,
I think he even used the example of saints at one point.
Yeah,
that these great men in history have these tendencies, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to butt fuck or that they
just have to be properly ordered.
Yeah, they have to be properly
hyper
ordered.
masculine.
Yeah. And so I just found it very interesting that through a different, I guess, metaphysical structure,
someone made the same observation.
Yes, made the same observations. And I think because a lot of it seems reactionary. It wasn't that, like in the whole chapter of God, he says that he doesn't want to make proclamations of God, but that he's not really ascribing to any of these ideologies of God, but that atheism is stupid. And that,
he didn't have much many kind words to say about Christianity. He was exactly. He was kind of anti-Christianity in the same. I get why people at least draw some kind of similarity between him and like Camille Paglia in some of their peripheral they're like a priori kind of stances. Like he's very pro-pagan and anti-Christian in a way. And Paglia in the same way that kind of Paglia is.
And I think similar to Paglia, he doesn't know much about like the theology for the medieval period.
That was my biggest criticism of the whole thing.
It was, yes, yeah. And
was that he says Christianity, but he doesn't know what he's
right. He's not actually referring to the long tradition of Christianity that existed. What was interesting is that he does know historical facts about the medieval period, but for some reason he doesn't know anything about the theology or the philosophy that existed there. And so that part was obviously lacking, but I think I texted you kind of immediately. I was like, I don't understand why anybody would compare him to Paglia because he's actually saying things.
Yeah.
The issue they had with Paglia is that she just wasn't saying anything.
She was just describing.
She was just describing things, and so the reader has to make his own inferences, and yet she doesn't want you to make an inference because making an inference is taking it too far. Blah blah blah. And so it's ridiculous academic like postmodernist bullshit that that really annoys me about texts like hers or Foucault or and people within that sphere, even though she pretends to be anti-Foucaultian. But anyways, with this one, he was actually making statements. He was actually saying things and things that we could analyze. So like in the very beginning, I found it interesting how he was kind of talking a lot and very negatively about Darwinism.
Oh, of course.
And this is very similar to Nietzsche.
Yeah.
And I like how he actually admits this. I think there's one part that I forgot which chapter it was. He says that I won't go deeper into this because if you want to know more about it, just read Nietzsche. Yeah.
He referenced Nietzsche a few times.
He did, yeah. And so a lot of his ideas are very Nietzschean, because
I think his whole methodology is pretty Nietzsche.
It is, yeah.
The will to power thing. The whole thing is just seize power and be a man.
Mm-hmm. And so I don't think this guy is a philosopher. Obviously, he
referenced like Nietzsche's Last Man, like
he does
very frequently.
Yeah. Because that's essentially what he's saying, that
there's an Übermensch, Undermensch, or whatever.
Yeah, that we have to be striving for that in terms of masculinity. And so because like Nietzsche was a philologist, and so
what does that mean?
It's like historical, I think.
History of philosophy? No,
not philosophy. I think it's more isn't it towards language? Let me see.
I really don't know. I know I've heard the word. I don't really know what that is.
Yeah. So the deals with the structure, historical development, and relationship of language.
Okay.
So
okay.
So that was a strict discipline of Nietzsche, and so like when you read his text, it reads more like a historian than it does an actual philosophical text.
And of course, he pulled a lot of his history out of his ass and stuff.
Yes, he did. Yes, yeah. His genealogical.
Do you think
structures.
that BAP, Bronze Age Pervert? I have to tell you that.
Not too much, actually.
You think he didn't make much up?
No, he actually doesn't get into it that much.
Yeah, he just kind of.
Yeah, he kind of.
It's only 198.
Yeah.
Well, 130 pages or something.
Right. I think he just mostly criticizes the here and now and makes historical references. But from when my understanding of history, a lot of it was pretty accurate, except again his commentaries on Christianity, because
which was probably about a third of the book. I mean,
it was
a lot of it.
It was, but it was a commentary against Protestantism, which at many times he actually refers to Puritanism.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it's like, okay, well,
any intelligent person would do that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he was accurate when he was.
Did Puritans really add hops to beer to make it taste?
That's what bad? I never knew that. I didn't look it up though. No, if that is true, that would make a lot more sense.
Well, hops
to me.
is an essential thing in beer. It's an essential.
Well, now it is, but probably originally it wasn't, because it does make it bitter, and I always wonder how people could drink this.
Why hops was added to beer? Because he would just say something really flippant like that, and then go on, and I'd be like, wait. Beer. What are hops? The oral hops and beer. Hops. I just want to see if I can. So, when was this first used? History. Was a religious and political choice in the 16th. There was no tax on hops to be paid to pay to the Catholic Church, unlike Groot. I don't know what that is. For this reason, the Protestants preferred hop beer.
Yeah, so the Protestants did it.
Hopped beer. The first documented hop cultivation was in 736. Hops to begin to start threatening the use of Groot for flavoring. Yeah, so no. Puritans didn't. They started adding hops to beer in at least the 13th century. So the Puritan thing was not true. And I had a feeling that it wasn't.
Yeah.
I was like, well.
But for the longest point of history of them making beer, it didn't have hops. So why did they do that? I don't know. There's a flavoring. I mean, there's a lot of old flavorings that I think are disgusting. So right, yes, yeah.
I don't know what people's tastes are like. But yeah, I know if hops in beer is anything like it is in the beers I like, it was not a prominent flavor.
Yeah.
An IPA is not traditionally a beer,
Right, yeah.
That's not how beer tasted for most.
Yeah, and I wonder that's why Belgian beer tastes so good, because most of them were made by monks.
And there's still hops in it, but
I don't taste it like I do with American beer. Like American beer for me tastes really bad.
Yeah,
and
especially hops are such a fad now, but.
Right, yeah.
I drink stouts and stuff, and those aren't hoppy. But
okay, yeah. But still, it adds this weird bitterness that I just can't chug at all. But regardless, whatever motivation of why,
so
in Protestant countries it became dominant, I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't think
he's attributing to. I could see that though.
Yeah, but I just
you just don't think it is.
Well, they've been doing it for so long. Puritans weren't around in the 13th century.
But was it dominant in the 13th century? Or was it just
introduced? It became threatening the use of whatever thing they were using before.
Yeah.
So it was getting popular before the Puritans existed. A couple hundred years later, or whenever it was.
Yeah.
So maybe Puritans added more or something, but or just
hops
made it was not added to
or made it more standard.
Yeah, I don't know. I just that to me doesn't sound super accurate, but because it's such an anyway. I just remember I didn't write anything else down, but there was a lot of stuff where I was just like when he talks about when he went to a museum and ejaculated hands free to statues. I was like, there's no way this happened. He was so engrossed by the beauty of the male figure in these statues that he ejaculated hand free. And I'm like, no. That's an insane thing to do. You're an insane person. He's like, it wasn't even my intention.
But I had people tell me that before.
That they can do it?
Yeah.
Well, no. You don't just intend to ejaculate hands free and it just happens to you.
No, that it wasn't intentional. Well, I mean, he's dead now. I could tell my dad said that happened to him when he was younger.
Weird.
Yeah, he said he didn't intend to. It just happens. So I mean, I don't know. I believe
there's a lot of stuff in this that just made me roll my eyes. Oh my god, it's so dramatic. But it's very Nietzschean of him to be that dramatic. It is, yeah. The one thing annoyed me about it was, he has this whole screed against empiricism and Darwinism, and then proceeds to make empirical observations the entire book.
Yes,
and I was just like, so what's your problem with empiricism and then writing an empirical observation?
Yeah, that part is pretty silly.
It was just say you think Darwin's annoying. Don't make a whole claim about how you hate empiricism and stuff. And write an entirely empirical book.
I think what he was mostly arguing, I guess, was the scientific method in terms of empiricism. Yeah. He was saying that the methodology of what we call the sciences is a flawed methodology, and he's obviously not doing that necessarily.
Well, he just kept saying empiricism.
Yes, but then he also does defend the sciences and says.
I know, it's very that whole part to me was a little.
He doesn't make much sense there, but again, that becomes very Nietzschean there.
No, I know.
Right,
no,
like
you just kind of have to enjoy reading it.
You do, yeah. Yeah, and I've read so much Nietzsche that I think that's probably why it was a bit of a going back to that. But
he also did the thing where he's like everything has intelligence in it.
Right. Yeah. Because he doesn't want to go to the, or he's just ignorant about the idea of
I think he probably
divine
is.
intelligence.
I think he
right?
probably is.
Yeah. Because when you read
he can't be ignorant because what? Croatia's like 80% Catholic. There's no way. Statistically speaking, he can't be ignorant about it.
But that's if he's actually from Croatia.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm just like in my mind thinking of the conspiracies of where he's from.
I would think that he has to be American.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think he's European because Europeans would be a little more knowledgeable about basic theology. He would know the idea of, just the idea that all things are kind of, I guess, directed, that there's intentionality to things, and the directedness is always what they call like divine mind or divine intellect or whatever, rather than saying that there's stuff in things. That just sounds very, very much how if you went to undergrad anywhere in the U.S. studying philosophy, that's how they describe like Aristotle's idea.
My response would be only an American would be crazy enough to write Nietzsche in the 21st century.
Yes, I know. Yeah, that too.
I also thought it was interesting that he did there's kind of a Foucaultian thing in how much credit he gives to degenerates.
Yes, yeah.
You know how like Madness and Civilization is just insane people built the Western world. Yeah. He essentially says that degenerates and perverts and gays made the West.
Yeah, does he say they make the West, or that they kind of are the only place left right now where you have?
No, he attributes historical
okay,
credit.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a huge emphasis. I just remember there's a couple little parts.
Right, that's similar to that.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean is like all you see is like he talks about the Greeks and ends there and then skips all the way to the modern period. And there's like no proper
modern
analysis.
Period Greek myth, modern period Zoroastrianism. Modern period.
And he just kind of ignores the entire part. And that's that's why I would say that it has to be ignorance, and normally that's how Americans learn philosophical texts.
I bet you liked that he was like a biological essentialist in like disposition and stuff. And like,
yes, yeah.
He's like doing all the comparing the different groups of people. Like,
yes, oh yeah. Yeah, which I would say was pretty accurate.
The Greeks hated the Near Easterners because the Near East was barbaric in a way they didn't like, but then the Northern barbarians were more honorable in their barbarianism, and then Africans are really the closest to Mediterranean people. Yeah, and I think it's all true.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I think those
I don't think any of that was wrong.
I do think that, and just to try to relate this text to a lot of the other conversations we had, I do think that, like in some of the episodes where I tended to kind of, I guess, cause more controversy, people were saying that, or at least people thought that I was saying that I believe that certain teachings of the church need to change. And that was never really what my claim was. It always is a sentiment of the way that we deal with things. And I do think that having the more, post-Trentian Protestant sentiment about things has led to the pussification of men. And that the way that he describes masculinity, the way he describes great men, and how they exist, I would say that's what needs to be tolerated more so than, what we tolerate now. Tolerate.
So you do like his description of masculinity?
I do. I think a lot of it is pretty accurate, right?
Was there any issue you took with it at all, or?
I guess that just some of the basics, like the confusion of freedom with licentiousness. I was like, that's not freedom. You have to be properly ordered to be free. But in terms of the description of raw animalistic masculinity, I would say, but that is the way men are. That is the tendencies, and to repress those qualities, to repress the ones who want to go into war, who just want to be violent. I remember when I was in, if I ever have to be in an area of a bunch of academics, I really start going insane. You know, like I remember this one time I was trying to describe it to Amanda, and so I had to meet with a professor, and he wanted to meet to get lunch. I was like, fine, I'll go meet him to get lunch, and just the way that he chewed, you know, like I had to restrain myself.
Does he open his mouth and stuff?
No, it was like the close up, you know, and I just looking at him, and the whole time I was holding on the table, I was like, just don't look, because like
that's me and my person I work next to.
Oh, is it? Yeah,
eating is so weird.
But like the thing that I wanted to do, and it might sound bizarre, is kind of physically jump on him, punch him, and just like scream and growl. You know, I just went growl, you know, just like start bashing his head against the wall. And I don't know why. And I get that urge many times when I'm in a room full of like pussified academic people. Yeah. Is I can't really deal with them for a long stretch of time because what they are is an object for me to dominate. And you see them and you walk into the room. It's like, I know at this moment I could physically dominate these people right here, and I just want to do it.
Line them up and put them one by one.
Yes, yeah.
And you're not going to hold them.
Yes, yeah. And at that time, I was working out a lot. You know, I was like getting real good shape.
Used to be like built.
Yes, yeah. And at that point, you know, like more of the testosterone starts growing in you, or at least the estrogen gets repressed, and so it gets manifested more. And so like that urge just comes even more. It's like you just want to just do shit, right? You just you see someone's face, you just want to pound it. You want to just like fight, fuck, eat, sleep, and all that shit. It's like that becomes your energy.
Is that why they call them lesser goods? Because they're of the lesser intellect?
Right? Yes,
they're of the lesser souls.
Oh no, lesser goods because they are good, but they're not as good as God.
Okay.
Yeah. And so these things are good in themselves, right? Okay. And to dominate it.
So that is a quality of the lesser goods, is that they're more instinctual.
Yes, and because they bring pleasure, and pleasure is a good, and so on and so forth. But they're never going to give you actual proper pleasure or satisfaction as God would. But those qualities that he's talking about, was like, that is accurate, right? And some, you know, like there's the same reason why I tend to rage quit, or I tend to like not properly function in society as a normal human being. And so reading it and everything was like, he's actually depicting that accurately, right? Like one of the quotes I wrote, it says, "Noble peoples do not endure slavery. They're either free or they die out. There's no adaptation to slavery for some types of people, for some types of life."
And he talks about like the Japanese, the Italians. He talks about a certain.
He does, and I do think there is that quality within masculinity. Is that when you are that way, you would rather be dead than to continue as a slave. You know, you like the same reason why I had no problem somebody coming to my studio, try to shut me down or put me in jail for not wearing a mask. Yeah. I went on an airplane without a mask. Like I honestly don't care. I was like, just do it. I like, what are you going to do? You know, either act or not, but I have no, there is no, you know, I guess option for simply obeying. And that becomes instinctual, and that becomes a part of your energy when you are, I think when you are kind of fucked up, I shouldn't say fucked up, but when you are that kind of person, right? And so like I think a lot of that, a lot of the descriptions, like his particular descriptions of how he says he hates it if he goes into a restaurant alone,
and somebody's like,
and the whole restaurant is empty, and then somebody sits right next to him. It's like, you just invaded my space. I'm angry or whatever. That's I thought that was pretty interesting. But I don't know, like I anybody that kind of has that energy, when they read this, I think they find almost kinship or relation to his descriptions, right? Like I remember one time when I was out in a bar with Amanda, just this pretty recently, I think about a year ago now, and I was sitting there, I was talking with her, and some guy like walked by, he looked at me, and my first response was, "What the fuck are you looking at? You know, what are you going to do about it? What are you looking at? Don't fucking look at me. Look away." And that was my immediate response. I don't know why. It wasn't anything like thoughtful. I wasn't being rational.
It's like if you stare at a dog for too long.
Yeah, it was like I just approach them and I say, "Don't fucking look at me," and they normally stop. And I was like, "Okay, fine," and then I just walk away. It's a weird behavior, but it's but when you read like what he's talking about, it's like any man that kind of has those qualities, you kind of see it, and many times you have to repress it in contemporary society. Mm-hmm. It's like it's repressing these qualities that kind of innate in the nature of man, but you have to, in order to be properly functioning in the contemporary world, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like I can't grab that guy, yell at his face, and pound his head against the wall. It's like that would put me in jail.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That would probably freak people out. That would do whatever. When I think in some other civilizations, including the medieval period, that would have been a little more understandable and also just a little more accepted as not as a good quality, but simply as a quality that is going to exist. Mm-hmm. War happens, men fight, and so on and so forth, and we've kind of obliterated all that. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of talked about this a little bit when I had that rant about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's like
Jay.
Yes, the Jay's episode, but it's the same.
Spiritually dying of AIDS.
Yes, it's the same thing. It's like. And he talks about it here kind of extensively too, about the way that women want these kind of men. It's like society tries to push on them the pussified man, but in the end, no, she wants the asshole.
No memory of that part.
Oh, you don't? Yeah,
weird.
Yeah, he talks about how
I was having a hard time retaining. I got most of it, but I don't remember
how they're more attracted to the man who's gonna just kick ass and fuck and everything. Like that's what the women actually desire. They don't desire these nerds, because he kept talking about the nerds, which I loved. Yes.
Well, what is it? Nerds are people. It's like pretentious people who think that their intellect will change the world or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Essentially, masturbatory thinkers that.
Yes. And
with like, large vocabularies that think for their own sake.
Yes. Yeah. But also
and accomplish nothing.
Yes, and accomplish nothing, right? And when you see a lot of academics, that is what they are,
Of course, contemporary academics.
Yeah, contemporary academics, right?
Because he does that, and I think it must be due to lack of knowledge of the medieval period.
Yeah,
scholastic thought and
right. Yeah,
kind of classical theology. Is he says something like, "Nothing was ever discovered with syllogisms." I think was his word.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, he was getting into kind of some like unnecessarily anti-intellectual territory.
Oh yeah, like his criticisms on logic and reason were horrible.
Yes.
Yeah, they were just bad.
So that was probably in the first third.
Yeah,
I think it's just that logic is essentially fake and an anesthetic for suffering. Or I don't remember exactly how he worded it.
Yeah.
But it was essentially that logic was just something that people made up to massage their own egos.
Yeah, so basically he was saying that the ideas actually are just an intuition, and then it's very Nietzschean.
Pretend to impose logic on it.
Yeah, that we just use logic basically to defend the position that we intuit.
And we would know more if we just disposed with
just logic and just intuit
everything.
Yeah, like a lot of those criticisms were stupid. I
don't think they're new.
They're not. Yeah, they're definitely not new. And if by reason he means the contemporary inductive nerd, I actually agree with him.
Of course, but he doesn't mean that.
But he doesn't.
He doesn't know that he means that.
Yes, he does.
Well, that's the impression I get. He might know. He might maybe he does know about Catholicism.
But he never
the Orthodox Church.
Talks about it.
But maybe he just doesn't think it's important. That could be true.
That could be.
Just someone intuiting the things that he intuits. I would not imagine that he's knowledgeable on it.
Right. Yeah.
Because that was one kind of theme of the whole thing. Is he's a guy who kind of understands instinctively proper masculinity and the way in which masculinity is totally perverted now or discarded or whatever.
Yeah.
And he knows something's wrong about the present.
Yeah.
But to kind of like everybody does, you look at the past and you're like, what about the past was good?
Yes,
and then you extract what qualities of the past you think made things better than they are now.
Right.
And I think because he doesn't understand the distinction between Christianity and then post-Reformation Europe.
Yeah.
This is all Christianity,
exactly,
ancient Greeks.
Yep. And I think that's the biggest problem that I have with it, because when you look at medieval Europe,
it's like the Holy Roman Empire. I was going to say the Holy Roman Empire wasn't successful. Like,
yeah, I know exactly.
It was the fastest production of wealth in human history, or something.
Yeah,
it was like,
and that they weren't these pussified men that came after Protestant revolt, right? Most of these French noblemen had many mistresses. Most of them were, fucking around and produced many children. They also got into the arts. And when we talked about our episode, we talked about how the arts was intrinsically masculine.
It is.
And that's the part that he was lacking in there. It's like, no, logic and the arts is masculine.
Yeah.
Right? They're not just things that we do. No, it's part of it. But what they incorporated back in the medieval period was that, you studied and then you hunted. Yeah. Right. And then you went back and you prayed and then you fucked. And it was like these qualities always existed within the sphere of what it means to be human. And I think it was a more coherent worldview than just the Bronze Age or just the pussification.
But I think he's just not equipped with the knowledge to make the distinction.
Right. Yes. Yeah. He's not. And I think that's like some of his historical things he was accurate. He was like, leisure did back then honestly meant that you went hunting.
Yes.
Leisure meant that you did things. You didn't just rest. It was, but that was a very medieval idea, is that's what you did.
Well, I think that's why men are not meant to lounge around. Women do that.
Yes, yeah.
And it's natural to them.
Yes,
and they are fine.
Yeah.
Like women can just sit and think and do nothing.
Yeah.
And men should not do that. And I think that's the reason young men are so depressed so frequently.
I think so, yeah.
That they don't do anything.
Because they're not doing anything, right. It's like you have to go out
That's why I fall into, I'm of the time. I'm of the now. And I'll just spend an evening sitting and doing nothing. And I'll be like, wow, I want to die.
Yes, yeah. But
that was horrible.
When you just get up and start doing things, you don't feel that way anymore.
Yep.
And that is, again, part of the masculine quality. But his lack of comprehension of that time period, I think, is what's really lacking.
Because what I don't think, even Christians now, even whether they're Catholic or many Catholics or Protestants or whatever, they don't understand that church doctrine and tradition is in large part an extension of Greek philosophy.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, obviously, to anyone who knows anything about Aquinas or something, you know, it's just an extension of Greek thought.
Yes,
and incorporated into that what we know now. And I think if Bap had understood that, or maybe he does, I don't know, but like just based on reading this, he doesn't.
Right, yeah.
Because anyone who understands that and respects the Greeks, so well, you're going to respect these people as an extension of them, and they also are now. They lasted for 1,500, 1,600 years uninterrupted.
Yep, yeah.
Since Aristotle.
Yeah.
To then, the Reformation does fuck things up, but
I know, yeah. And
you don't have to look as far back as the Greeks.
You don't exactly. That's the thing.
Because proper understanding.
Yeah, because I do think the issues that we have right now is both, as I talked many times about the Protestant revolt, but also the sentiments after Trent. Yeah, because the fact that I said this to somebody one time. It's like, look, you really they want to demonize the womanizer or whatever, right? Yeah. But then they have no issue if the priest gives communion to a 400-pound man. Yeah. It's like, okay, this person literally is a glutton, right? He obviously has not stopped. He is still gluttonous because he's to get to 400 pounds. Yeah. The amount that one has to eat is tremendous. Yeah. Right?
Of course. On a constant basis.
Yes, on a constant basis.
There are very, very few people with a genetic issue.
Yes, very few people.
Yes. Very few people.
Yeah. And if this person is going to Mass for 10 years and keep giving him communion, he is literally engaging in a deadly sin. Mm-hmm. He is obviously not repentant of it.
And do all sins partake of a deadly sin?
I guess you could say that you could relate to it, but this is a direct one. Yes, this is a direct one. It's a corporeal sin in which he is obviously idolizing food over God. Yeah. Before he is not stopping, right? Like
he knows he's going to die.
Yes, he knows he's going to die. He knows he's engaging into something, and yet, through pastorality, we are allowing this to be the case, in which I'm not really objecting to. What I am saying is that pastoral quality has to be
tempered,
spread out to others as well.
Yeah.
Right. Whenever somebody's engaging in a fleshly sin, we shouldn't say that is worse than the other. And this is what we have come to now. We could look at the 400-pound glutton and we're like, oh, that's not that bad, right? And yet if somebody, if somebody like King Louis, who has a wife and 8 mistresses, would be like, well, that's too much. That's going too far. It's like, why? Yeah. Like, what really is going too far there? He has not divorced. He's not living in a state of sin in that sense, right? And so he is engaging in a certain pleasurable sin in which he ought to stop. Nobody's denying that, just the same way that the fat man should stop, right? But
or someone that sleeps too much, or
someone who sleeps too much, or whatever. But we should extend the same pastorality towards others, and we don't. And we're skipping over.
Well, it's what do they do if someone shows up intoxicated to mass?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Is that something that happens sometimes?
Intoxicated?
Yeah.
A
lot?
No, just the hobos in downtown Anchorage.
Yeah. Do they still like accept communion and stuff?
They normally try to just bless them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's obvious.
It's obvious, right?
But still, it's the same. Why give it to the giant fat guy?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Or the Down syndrome kid who doesn't even know what the fuck is happening. It's like,
ooh, how do you do with that? What do you do with mentally?
Right now, we're now so pastorality is actual law and doctrine in the church, where that, if your act is not actually causing great sin or harm, but it will detract from the individual to completely abandon the church, you could engage with an act of pastorality and say that, well, what if they never come to mass again? You're actually damaging them worse than just giving the Down syndrome communion.
So what about the Down? So that doesn't answer my question.
Oh yeah,
really at all as far as like mind.
Yeah.
I don't understand what that means. So do they give Down syndrome? So they give Down syndrome kids.
Many of them do. Some of them don't.
Ever?
Yeah.
Why? I'm just curious.
Because they're saying they can't engage intellectually or willfully act upon it. So it's like a baby. You're not supposed to really give a baby a communion. Like they have to kind of know what's happening, at least minimally.
Okay.
And so if he can go through the classes and show that he actually comprehends that this is the literal body and blood of Christ, and then because I think some of them are more far gone than others.
Of course.
But
there's some extremely high functioning Down
there
syndrome
are,
people,
right? Yeah. But also I kind of agree with the notion. It's like, you shouldn't deny them it, because in the end they're engaging with their will to the capacity that they are. Right. And so I'm in more of agreement, which some people will call more liberal idea, but I'm more of agreement. So you should give it to the Down syndrome person. You should give it to the severely retarded, because a lot of times when I look at a lot of people, I think they're kind of fucking retards, right? It's like, I'm not going to sit there and say...
You draw the line of retardation way further up.
Like today on Twitter.
It's like, well, we give it to women.
I mean, if I go to somebody like, but do you really know the doctrine of divine simplicity, that God is not an ensumum? It's like, no, most of them aren't.
Well, don't give them the Eucharist.
Yeah. I would say, no, we have to... You have to engage with them to the capacity that they have. Others have higher capacities and others have lower capacities. And when somebody is mentally deficient, it was like they're still engaging.
Yeah, the first way you explained that didn't register at all.
Right, yeah.
It's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I felt like a retard.
Yeah, and so I would say a proper act for the priest to do is to give the downy the communion. But anyways, we kind of strayed away from this.
No. That's how it should be.
But yeah,
I really enjoyed his commentary on male friendship.
Yes.
And he essentially criticized contemporary man for being incapable of conceiving of an extremely
intimate male friendship
without making them like literally like sodomizing each other.
Yes, yeah.
Like it's just impossible. It's like, oh, were those guys gay?
Yeah, no, yes, yeah. And again,
I don't remember who he.
I think you and I talked about this at length before. Yeah. And that's also what I found interesting. It's like, wow, this is something else that we have discussed, right? That the idea of the importance of intimate masculine friendships that we just don't have in our, in our contemporary world. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is because we, like he says, we have
So here's an interesting thing about the homosexuality quote unquote commentary, the sodomy commentary the ongoing story of sodomy on Contragentiles. Is that I think the flip side of that. So if you make it impossible for people to conceive of extremely intimate male friendship without a sexual dimension, then you make it very difficult for young people caught up in the contemporary social decay. They tend to assume a sexuality in their own friendships. That is very difficult to, because that's obviously, I'm a gay guy, so like I mean, not like, just culturally.
I know.
Not even culturally, just like I'm a victim of that. And I think that it's not hard anymore, but it used to be very hard for me to separate very good male friendship from like being attracted to people. Well, it's just weird. Like, and it was never like sodomous, but like it was just very much like, am I like in love with this person? Like it's a weird. It's a difficult thing for like very young people to have to figure out that they can just be friends with people.
Right. I do think a large part of that is, he talks about a little bit, but we've talked about it at more greater length, is the ideas of identity. And I think that's the part that really fucks it up, because when you read like the Greeks, for example, and the Greeks had deep, intimate friends with other men, and then they happened to butt fuck or they happened to do whatever, they didn't go around and be like, oh, now I am gay. I'm never going to touch a pussy again. It was merely an activity that they did fall into passion and desire for love of one another. And when we don't have that anymore, now when we say necessarily you commit a certain sin, now forms an identity that you are this thing.
And then you have to also tell everybody about that.
Yes, then you have to tell
everyone else has to be okay with it.
Yes, and I think especially young people begin to get confused because everybody's telling them, no. You're gay, you're gay, you're gay, you're gay. The teachers are going to tell them this. The TV is going to tell them. Every commercial fucking is going to tell them. It's like, no.
So it must be the case.
Yeah,
if you're like a 9-year-old.
Yes, exactly. It's, I guess I'm gay. And it's like, no, it's people engage in different activities. Like, I know people who are like,
oh, yeah, I have a gay son. I'm like, oh, how? And he's like 8.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing that to your kid for?
Yeah, I know. It's like, no, there's no such thing as a gay 8-year-old. There's no such thing as a fucking gay person anyways.
Yes.
Right? That entire identity, that category.
And I think that he intuits that.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
He does like the Milo thing.
Right, yes.
Where he's like, well, I'm not a homosexual anymore. It's like, no, Milo. Yiannopoulos, you need to say that gay people don't exist.
Yeah, they don't exist.
Take it all the way. Like, go make the full...
But yeah, we
make the full metaphysical claim.
Right. Yeah. We simply constructed an identity based on potency.
Yeah.
And it's just, it doesn't make any sense. Like we shouldn't be talking about this. It's just people sodomize each other at times and then they don't.
Yeah.
And that I think when you have that outlook in life, it is much more liberating. It's more of a, now I could simply engage with the world.
Yeah.
I don't have to struggle with forming myself to an identity that pre-existed me in order for me to,
which does make you hate yourself.
It does, right? Yeah, because then everything would have to work. Like, how does a gay man dress?
That's why so many trans people kill themselves.
In the end, yes, because they're trying to conform to this made-up identity. It doesn't exist. Trans people don't exist. Gays don't exist. When they say you're trying to erase my existence, yes, I am, right? Because this identity,
I'm trying to erase that thing that you think exists.
Exactly, because this identity that you're talking about that exists does not exist. There is no such thing as a woman trapped in a man's body. That makes no sense. There is nothing that there is a homosexual, is somewhere locus in your fucking brain
it's like that says gay. It's like,
it's like, no, you engage in action like that. Those are real things. Does somebody engage in sodomy? Okay, while engaging in sodomy and continuous, I can identify you as a sodomite. You can't identify yourself as bullshit. No, I see you. You're engaged in something. You murder somebody. Okay, you are a murderer, right? You engage in sexual activity. You fucker, right? You fuck your mother. You're a motherfucker, right?
Yeah.
And so you have these things in which I could identify in terms of your behavior, but identity, there's no heterosexual, there's no homosexual, there's none of this shit.
Yeah.
All of those categories are fabricated nonsense that refer to nothing but potency. And the more that we dive into that, or now it just refers to nothing at all. This weird person that exists inside of you that's the other sex. It just doesn't make any sense from the gender. But anyways, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, on a practical level, it explains the suicide rate. It does, literally insane.
Because it's chaos. It's complete insanity.
Yeah.
And
well, it's not even just insanity. It's trying to impose order on insanity.
Okay, yeah, that's even worse.
It's even worse. You're trying to make sense. Yeah, making sense of insanity actively for years would make me kill myself too.
Yeah, it's like trying to talk to a schizophrenic and have a normal conversation with them.
But you just don't stop, and you keep trying, keep trying. It's just like,
in the end, it's like, no, this is not working, man. You're insane. Leave me, please.
Or like, yeah, so something.
Yeah, like I remember when I went to visit one of my friends in a mental hospital, and it was like, even just being in there for about an hour or two, it's bizarre.
Oh, it's creepy.
Yeah.
The air feels different.
It does. Yeah. I was like, I can't imagine trying to make sense of this, because there is nothing to make sense. It's so sporadic and abrupt.
So that's the thing. I think that it's a problem with the push to explain the efficient cause of everything, as if that tells you why.
Right. Yeah.
Like the meaning of life, to explain why things come to be. You can explain the way that the chemicals in the brain are disordered when someone's schizophrenic, or what events might lead up to someone being schizophrenic, or what medications might make someone sound like they're not schizophrenic, or stuff like that. But it's when you cannot explain schizophrenia.
You can't, exactly.
It's just a disorder of the mind, and unless people can conceive of it as such, you're never going to know.
Right, and that's basically it. Because like the efficient cause simply is giving you a sequences of actualization potentials of how physically something really came to be. That's really all that you're saying with it. But you can never really sit there and be like, I'm going to describe chaos. It's like chaos really is indescribable. And so I just think a lot of the,
because that actually ties in with this.
It does, yeah.
Is that he part of his kind of screed against Darwinists and empiricists that I don't think was as committal as he thought it was. It's kind of something I expressed earlier, but he says something about he's one of the things he rejects in their thought is that they deny teleology. He says teleology several times.
He does,
And then I don't necessarily know if he himself says anything about teleology per se.
He doesn't, He says that they're not...
He says something about how they reject teleology, and then he makes a really, really well-observed empirical claim through the whole thing, but never says anything about teleology. So, I think it was that section to me. There's a section where he describes a lot of metaphysics, but it feels very regurgitated. And then doesn't address it again.
Right, Because again, I think if you don't know the medieval period, you just know Aristotle. A lot of people don't realize that if you just read Aristotle, you're actually not going to get as much information of Aristotelianism than you think you are.
Well, it's because his work isn't complete.
Yeah, his work isn't complete. Like a lot of it...
it was complete, but was largely destroyed.
Yeah, you have to read commentaries by Al-Farabi, who does quite
Avicenna. Avicenna didn't...
Yeah, Avicenna did a lot of with Aristotle too.
Who was the one who... Was it Augustine that didn't have access to Aristotle, but reached a lot of the same conclusions?
Yes, yeah. But like Avicenna, Al-Farabi... Averroes, I think.
Is Averroes Mohammedan?
Yeah. Those are the three main Mohammedans. You get a lot more from them because a lot of the texts were still in existence when they were translated.
Imagine what the Middle East would be like if that just continued.
I know. One of them was...
That depresses me as much as the fall of the West.
Yes, I know. Because I can't remember which one, but one of them was required to recant, or he was exiled, and he chose to be exiled. The other one decided to recant, and then but I can't remember which ones did that. And so the Mohammedans kind of early on were like, this is going too far, and they began to...
because they were like in the 600s, 700s.
Yes, and but they did a lot. If it wasn't for them, we would have had none of that.
That's one of the things I see in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Especially in Saudi Arabia and Iraq.
Yeah.
Is even Egypt maybe. I don't know how long Egypt's been Mohammedan, but I don't know when they.
But the potential for greatness is there.
It's just it's like you can sense a desperation for it. You
can. Yeah.
You can. I think that's why it's so chaotic.
Yeah.
Is because they have the kind of mostly fundamental understanding of being.
Yeah.
But they're wrong.
I know, yeah.
And they're wrong in very crucial, specific ways.
And very intelligent.
Extremely.
You know, like in grad school, I only had 2 students in there from Iran, but compared to the Westerners, they were much more well-spoken. They knew basic medieval philosophy. They even knew Aquinas better than many of the Catholics there. And it was just that I just actually found them extremely intelligent.
Well, it's just one of the, I mean, you kind of, one has to separate like totally shelled to death cities that exist now as a result of continued war forever.
Yes, yeah.
And actual like Islamic aesthetics.
Yes.
Their aesthetics are insane.
Yeah.
Their writing system is like one of the greatest preservations of beauty on earth.
It is.
It's gorgeous.
And the ones that do well financially it's incredible. UAE.
Oh, I know.
It's like, holy shit.
I know.
With the amount of wealth that goes
Qatar.
Yeah.
Bahrain.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the ones that aren't...
Saudi Arabia even.
Saudi Arabia,
beautiful.
Yeah. The ones that are
Egypt.
I remember that they showed... Who was Gaddafi ahead of again?
Libya? No.
Was it Libya? I can't remember.
Gaddafi was...
But anyways...
Muammar Gaddafi.
Yeah.
Where he had the crazy claws.
Yeah.
That's Libya.
Libya, yeah.
Algeria.
I remember
Libya? I think it's Libya.
They showed images pre and post-war.
Yeah.
I didn't know how beautiful it was there.
Gorgeous.
It was amazing. Yeah. Everything about it was like, oh my gosh.
It's like, imagine like Algiers. If it had just continued to be what it was.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It's crushingly sad.
Yes.
Well, Algiers was allowed to be beautiful for longer. But,
yeah. But
like, you look at it. You look at a mosque.
Yeah.
Like built in a classical style. They're, I mean, really as beautiful as cathedrals. Like they are. They're very similar.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think it's interesting the way that they they can't make any icons.
Right. Yeah.
They're iconoclasts, but so they made art out of written words. What do you say?
Yes, I said because they're essentially Aryans.
Yeah. No, I understand. Well, they are.
Yeah.
But they took literally written words and made as beautiful as art of them as possible.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
It's really amazing.
Yeah,
their food is beautiful.
Yep. Yeah. No, there's a lot about them that I think they got right.
Yeah.
But much of their theology
is just the signals got scrambled.
I think it really, really fucked them up. There's a reason why I think even till today the Mohammedanism still is the fastest growing world religion, and I think part of that is because there's many of them. When you speak to them, they know what they're talking about. You know, like today when we were discussing with some heretics on Twitter, it's like you listen to these heretics, and the only
is what you're saying.
Yes, the only thing that they could say is, "Where in the Bible does it say this? Where in the Bible does it say this?" Where that's literally the only thing they could fucking say. And compare that to speaking to just an ordinary Mohammedan. It's like they're actually very well spoken.
They generally have a very good sense of humor.
They
very
do.
Well spoken.
They're very generous. They're
graceful.
Yeah, I remember when we were in Belgium, they were like, give my kids free lollipops, and some you don't have to pay now. You pay when you come back.
You don't have to pay.
And
hello, friend. Hello,
yes,
friend.
all the time. It's like, there's a reason why, because they. And I've said this many times, their metaphysics are just correct.
I think so. So they're one of the few cultures on Earth that understands that life is a gift.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
People in the Middle East know life is a gift, and that's why the suicide bombing thing is so significant.
Yes.
And that's why that's the sacrifice they make, is they're giving up their life for whatever thing. Whether or not I think they're insane for doing that, for whatever reason they are.
Yep.
But life is the greatest gift you can have. Yes, yeah. And just talking with people from the Middle East, they get it.
I know.
In the same way that Italians get it and Spaniards get it.
Yeah.
And the Greeks get it. And
They virtually, I think, have like 98%. Most Islamic nations have 98% marriage that that stays together. Mm-hmm. That's enormous. Yeah. I mean, just imagine that.
Of course, depending on the country, women aren't necessarily treated with.
I think they're treated with what they need to be treated as.
You think putting them in like garbage bags and then?
Okay, I don't think they shouldn't have any aesthetic beauty, but in terms of status in society, they are women, and they're given the status that women ought to be given. Now, the aesthetics I would disagree with because I like the female form and it should be a little more exposed. But in terms of,
well, what is the? It's not a
because they're not treated as property.
I don't know the names of all of the different styles of.
Right. Yeah. Like some Muslim. Of them is just covering their hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. The really, really crazy ones cover their entire.
There's one
face.
that I actually think so.
Yeah.
Muslim woman outfit names. What do I say? What headdress names? There's one where I look at it and I'm like, I could be convinced.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not a hijab.
Yeah.
There's a full length. Oh, is this a type of Islamic veils? There's one. Oh, this is so weird. I don't like this website at all.
The Jews used to have that too.
I don't remember what it's called, but it's the name of the full thing.
Yeah.
And it's a full outfit they wear.
Okay.
But
was it a little more form-fitting?
Yes.
I think I know what you're talking about. It's
more form. What is it called? I don't even know. Oh, a niqab. No? Maybe? I don't know. I don't know what it's called. But
yeah.
Is it a niqab? No, that covers the whole face. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
Abaya. An abaya? No, I don't. There's so many different ones. It just depends on the country. But there's a certain female garb in one of the Muslim countries that I just like. It's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
And adorned and colorful.
Right.
Like, it's just like I don't.
No, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you sent me a picture of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I do agree that like women running around in bikinis all the time is like not necessarily proper.
No, that isn't. Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not proper.
Like women
it's too liberated.
In many of the West that don't know their place. They don't understand.
That's actually something in Bronze Age
he
mindset that he gets.
Yes.
He says like the liberation of women is the greatest mistake.
Yeah. It wasn't actually liberating them at all.
Yeah.
To tell women that you could be like men is almost as vile as the devil saying you could be like gods.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't. You can't be a man. You shouldn't be the sexually liberated whore. Is that you need to be a woman, and woman has feminine virtues, and within the feminine virtues, you take care of the young, you feed the man, and so on and so forth, and the masculine men conquers many women, and it's like that. I don't see why that dichotomy necessarily needs to be eradicated, and this is where I think the Mohammedans really have a good grasp, and I think even more so the medieval Catholics had a good grasp because they never dissolved the nature of marriage while they were conquering many women, and while they were subjugating them towards their will and towards the positions in which they put them in, and so I
because I would agree. I would obviously say like in following the Islamic Revolution in 1979 in Iran and stuff, there was an overcorrection.
There was.
In how women were literally abused and still are in Iran.
But not all women.
Not all women. No, I agree. But there is a pervasive abuse of women.
Yes,
that is an overcorrection from women running around in Iran wearing bikinis and stuff. These kind of, I mean, BAP makes the observation that Near Easterners were far more. You can't say barbaric because that refers to the Northern Europeans. Because he actually uses that language correctly.
Yeah, he does.
Which I thought was interesting. Savage. I don't know what the word was that he used. He said something about.
But we could just use savage for this discussion.
Savage. They're more. There's kind of the tendency to overcorrect in the Middle East is more savage and extreme. Than it is in the West.
It is, yeah.
And I would actually attribute a similar extreme not extremity, extremeness
Yeah.
to moral overcorrection in Northern Europe as opposed to a violent overcorrection in the Middle East.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a similar, and I think that he actually says something about how the extremes should be balanced.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
That the extremes of this kind of physical violence and, could you say psychological violence or something?
Yeah, yeah.
Like in the barbarians and Northern Europeans are.
Yeah.
The Puritans would not. There would be no Puritan would ever come to be in the Middle East.
Right. Yes.
Ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the savagery of the Middle East is far more extreme than. I mean, the Vikings maybe were.
Yeah.
But even then, they were a
right.
A
that's the fact that
people.
They kill women for like premarital sex and stuff. Yeah, it is. It's
a moral violence.
It is. Yeah.
Or there's an opposite end of extreme going on between the Middle East and Northern Europe.
Right. Yeah. Even though I think the Middle East understood that the corruption of women really is the corruption of society.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're suffering right now in our contemporary society, is that the women were corrupted first, and then
bitches be running wild.
Yeah, bitches be running wild, and then you saw the corruption of men as being pussified. People. Yeah. And
that would not happen in the Middle East.
It wouldn't.
I wouldn't. Obviously, the Middle East is corrupt in a different.
Right.
It's about as corrupt in a different way.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting that he made that observation.
But I do think
how Africans were just kind of like lesser developed and therefore not corrupt, just lesser developed than Mediterraneans.
Yeah.
Which I think makes sense. I thought it's an interesting observation to make without the knowledge of like how Nigerians are the best Catholics right now.
Right,
it's like it was interesting that someone would make that observation without seeing that part.
Yes, yeah.
Like they're essentially undergoing the same Christian transformation that Europe went through, but like hundreds of years earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, it does. It's what I find kind of interesting, and so I'm going to try to tie two things that we've discussed in the past with this. And so I hope it's not too much of a curveball for the listeners. But I was listening today while I was developing film. It was one of Matt Fradd's episode. So he was discussing with a guy who is both a Byzantine Catholic priest and as well as a Roman priest. And so he kind of just says both liturgies.
How is that possible?
Special dispensation.
Okay.
That in the area, I can't remember which state it was. I don't want to say the wrong state. It might have been Minnesota or whatever, but he kind of...
One where there would be a conflict of population or something.
Right, yeah. And one thing he was talking about, so they brought up like the SSPX and everything. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that he was saying was the thing that many people who are very disenchanted by Vatican II don't realize that the greatest conversion that we have seen in Africa was because of Vatican II, and that
no, you said this before. This is that the polygamists in Africa could convert.
Right. Yes, and that was a huge part of it, but also that apparently when they were trying to say the Tridentine Latin Mass to them, it didn't mean anything to them. Like the way that the Europeans view it as reverend, they just viewed it as dull and boring. Mm-hmm. And so many of them were actually getting converted to Mohammedanism much easier, or to other forms of Protestantism because what is it? Islam is like submission to being, or something. It is, right? Yes,
is essentially what the phrase means.
Yes, yeah.
And if you walk up to somebody, you're just doing it now.
You're just doing it right now. Yeah,
you can't do that behind a wall of
exactly. And then you have like barrier. Chanting. You have all this stuff. But for them, the liturgy just didn't mean much. What actually helped a lot was the Novus Ordo liturgy, was the fact that you had a Mass in the vernacular, and that they were able to adopt much of their traditions.
So it's almost like the Novus Ordo was an adaptation to the fact that the church was global in a way that it never been.
Yeah. And I think that's a very interesting topic, because like you were saying, the fact that Nigerians and many of these other Catholics are the strongest Catholics in the world right now, right? Compared to anybody in the West. You look at the bishops in Africa, and they're just doctrinally very strong. Many of the people.
What's this name? Sarah Roberts.
Yeah, Sarah. Yeah. who I hope becomes Pope. I think he's just amazing.
Can you imagine? I just can't imagine. I know I've said it before, but if the owning of the libs that would happen,
I know,
the first
yes.
black Pope was
I know
Robert Serra.
It would be better than fucking what's the justice name?
Clarence Thomas.
Clarence Thomas, you know, like that's already amazing. that he is the most conservative and Catholic.
I know, but if
Supreme Court,
it's a Robert Serra,
but if he
I want
was
to see
the Pope,
Clarence Thomas meeting with Robert
I know,
Serra.
yes, that would just be amazing.
This is the friendship the libs are afraid of.
Yeah. Well, but I think a lot of times when you look at it, and I don't want to sound too mystical or whatever, because that requires a lot of defense, but I'm just going to say for the case of the show, is that when you look more at the divine plan, you could kind of begin to see why, right? Like a lot of times I think the question really is like, why? Why is this happening? Why are we seeing the corruption? Why are we seeing all of this? But then you see somebody like Sarah, and you see the fact that Vatican II saved so much of Africa from converting to Mohammedanism. It was like, can't you just deal for now?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, okay, yes, the West, Rome, Europe, all these places, you had the richness of the Catholic faith for so fucking long, right? These people didn't. And the fact that because of Vatican II, they're engaging in it, and they're engaging with it more strongly than anybody in the West right now. Yeah. Yes. That's beautiful. That's a good thing. Right. And that and this is why I always, urge people, just be patient. Stay with the church. If you don't know why, it's because you're human, right? Of course, you're not going to know the divine will of God. You're man. You could try to dissect it. You could try to figure it out. But as long as you stay faithful to the church and be like, okay, the church has its reasons. God has its reasons. Let's just let it play out. And when you see it manifested, it really is a good thing.
That's any extreme rejection of the Novus Order is like, well, it doesn't make me feel anything.
Right, yeah.
It's like, fuck you.
Yes.
That's not...
Yeah. It makes
them... Latin makes me feel something. It's like, well, it makes me feel something too, but that's not really the point.
Right, yeah.
Go to a Methodist church then. Yeah. Go.
Yeah.
You want to feel something.
The things that if you're going to...
I've felt things in like really charismatic Protestants.
Exactly, yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. And the thing is that if you're going to reject the church because of that, right? That
does it need you?
Yeah. It's like, well, then you never really were that faithful to begin with.
No. You didn't sacrifice yourself to it.
You didn't, yeah. No. You never... It's kind of like if you're in a marriage and she always cooks my food overcooked, I'm going to divorce her. Or he doesn't make enough money, that bastard, I'm going to divorce him. It's like, well, then you never really were committed. Honestly, if you're not going to stick it through the tough times, you're not going to see it through to the end, that you see the good that's happening to others and you're still going to reject it. It was like, yeah, you never were that faithful then. Good riddance at that point. Many of these people that convert to Protestantism or whatever. But yeah, I found that really interesting. I didn't know the amount of conversions that happened because of Vatican II in Africa. Like I didn't know the.
That's why the Black Panther movies were like the greatest civilization on earth was actually hidden in Africa.
Right. Yeah.
I think was correct in a way that it didn't really understand.
Yeah. It was trying to make it as if because they're secretly technologically advanced. I was like,
no, Lagos, Nigeria is a hotbed of Catholic conversion.
Yes. Yeah. That's what's amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact that we can potentially have a Nigerian.
They talk
Pope.
so intelligently too. It's such a cool accent.
It is, yeah. No, I love it. It's like mixture with French.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Everything about it. Their face, everything about them just looks good because a lot of the French like fuck them, and so they produce these really good looking African people.
Yeah,
it's like it's amazing.
What did you think of his criticism of cities? I thought that was interesting because to me, he wasn't talking about European cities.
He wasn't, yeah, I know.
He was talking about like in China.
Yes,
It's like, well, a Chinese city is...
I would say of modern cities, yes.
Modern American and Chinese cities.
Like if you look at traditional medieval European cities, no, his criticism does not fly with that.
Yeah.
But in terms of modern cities, yes.
Because what? Chinese cities are a like extreme version of an American city.
Yes, yeah.
in all of the ways that an American city is dystopian.
Yes, yeah.
Like Chicago is not a beautiful city to like walk around in. Like there's a grandeur to it. But it's the same way that like walking through mountains with no trees and no animals and stuff. It's like hiking Iceland would be an imposing experience, but it would be like crushing. It would be like soul crushing in a way. And there's a similar quality to that in an American city because there's everything is utilitarian.
Right.
Ultimately.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I do think that kills the spirit.
And I was actually
and it kills manliness.
I was talking to Marcus, British British friend of the podcast, and he it was earlier today, but it was like I was listening to his part talking about cities. Yeah. And there's something about American cities, not as much extreme Eastern cities in the US, like old very few old cities like Boston, Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Philadelphia's kind of disgusting now, but like
but
Boston,
some parts of it is still
parts
quite
of
beautiful.
New York,
yeah.
Stuff like that.
Like where that museum is in Philadelphia is actually quite beautiful. That entire block, that strip.
Yes, but those are the oldest of old cities in the U.S. Yeah, and it was almost immediately after it changed. Yep, yeah. Because the revolution was 24 years before the 19th century.
Yes, yeah.
And then, the Industrial Revolution was kind of starting, underway. And then it was just...
Yeah, because New York is interesting that way. It's like some parts is beautiful, like these old architecture, and the rest is just like the steel coldness of depression.
Yes, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, it's like a weird mix of like Rust Belt.
Philly is the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. But there's something about cities in the U.S. that are built to facilitate antisocial behavior. Yeah. That... cities, especially in Southern Europe, are not. Yes. Yeah. Well, even like Central Europe and into Germany. Yeah. I mean, really anywhere in the UK, like in Europe. I mean, the UK, I guess, according to him, he got a kind of a similar. He was able to observe a similar distinction between them. Yes, yeah. You cannot, just with the age of many cities in the UK, in that they were originally Roman, like you can't 100%. It's not as big of a difference, right? But there's something about walking around Seattle that is way more alienating than like walking around
I agree.
Prague.
Oh yeah.
It's
or LA because it's horrible.
Yes, because LA is designed to be driven. Which is intrinsic. Well, it's an intrinsically antisocial behavior.
It is,
to drive. Yeah. Not that driving isn't useful,
right? But even downtown LA.
Why do people listen to podcasts when they drive? It's because they're starved of human interaction.
Yep. Yeah.
And so commuting is an inherently bitter and antisocial behavior.
It is, yeah.
And no one in Europe. It's very rare that you meet someone. It's weird to meet someone who commutes.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah.
And because something about European cities. Yeah. Whether it's like Rothenburg, Germany, or somewhere in France, or Seville, Spain, or like these places, you are thrust upon each other.
You are, yeah.
And you interact with literally every person on the street.
Yeah.
There isn't a person with whom you aren't like dancing when you walk down the road.
Oh, yeah. And New York and Boston are the only two places I've been to in the U.S. that
are kind of like that.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't say they're as nice.
They're not at all. No.
But they do a similar.
They do
thing. Well, Boston is very old.
It is.
A lot of the infrastructure, especially in the middle part, is very.
It is.
It's very similar.
It's beautiful.
Is it probably one of the only beautiful cities in
I would think
the US?
So. Yeah, I think it's the most
probably
beautiful
one of them.
Somebody said one in Vermont is that way.
Montpelier or something.
I've never been to Vermont.
Well, yeah, it's probably not worth it. It's probably not worth it, but but there's his description of cities, he's talking about American cities and then by extension like Chinese megacities. I think he specifically talks about cities in China.
Even videos of those Chinese megacities creep the fuck out of me.
It's just
it's
socially engineered. No city like that would organically come to be.
I don't. It's gross.
Yes, I agree completely.
I think it's
but I thought that was interesting because it was yet his observation would be more correct if he knew more or had observed more.
Right. Yeah. Because I think the direction of beauty that many of the older European cities had is very important that we just don't get in the more in the contemporary
Well, it also, and like what I was saying is that, the European cities forced social interaction as a good.
It did, yeah.
Just in how they were built.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, they're not designed for cars. It's like, well, yeah, don't drive.
No, yeah.
So
I know, yeah.
It's weird for young people to own cars.
Yes, I know. No, just
old people own cars.
Living there, it really is a different feel.
Mm-hmm.
You could be riding your bike, and sometimes I would just like run into fucking Francesco. We talk, and then we get some wine.
Yeah.
There's interactions that I had that I never ever had in the U.S. and never
because
can
our cities
have.
are not designed for it.
It's not for that. Yeah. I remember
you drive, you get in a parking lot, you go into work, you interact with people at work, you get in your car, and then you're socially isolated until you get home and get out of your car again.
Yeah. Like one of my good friends, he now married her, Erika, the way that we just met her is that we were walking to get charcoal. Mm-hmm. And getting charcoal, she was like sitting under. So there's this weird statue in Leuven, where there's like a huge pike, and there's like a beetle stabbed. I don't know why this exists, but she was sitting there like with another Dutchman, and then we saw her, and then Erika, then Francesco was, oh man, she's beautiful. I was like, let's talk to her. He was like, no. So I just went up and talked to her. I was like, how you doing? You want to come to a barbecue or whatever?
While she's with another guy.
Yeah. And so she was like, yeah, let's go. And so she like followed us and everything. It was like...
and the guy's like, hey!
No, he was fine with it. He was like another pussified European dude.
Yeah.
And so, so he went in there, he saw my, he wanted to see how much I could lift. And so, I was doing about, what was it, 50 kilos. It was, it was a lot of,
weight.
It was a lot of weight. I think it was about, what would that be?
100 kilos?
Yeah, it's about 100, 125. And I think it was 125 kilos, yeah.
kg, 2 pounds. We got to see, is this worth 275?
270, yeah, that's what I was lifting.
Yeah.
And so he was just like super impressed. He was like, how much are you going to do? He just kept like throwing shit on there. but yeah, we just had a good time. And it had so much interactions that way in Europe. Like it was normal. I'll be walking from class. I'll run into people. I'll meet new people, and it was engaging necessarily. While when I was in New York Film Academy, not once did that happen. Not once did I ever run into somebody I know. Not once did they have like a strange interaction with people. It was only people who I went to class to. But it was always like this. It's an overwhelming feeling that you get with U.S. cities.
Well, it's a social isolation.
It is.
Nothing ever happens.
Yeah, that I never got living in Europe. And there was it was vastly different, and so I would say his descriptions are accurate in terms of American, like you were saying, American cities,
and then East Asian, kind of copies of American cities,
right? But not nowhere near what you find with these older cities in Europe that were built since the fucking Holy Roman Empire that have this magnificent cathedral in the middle, and it just everything about it was beautiful, the way that the roads and everything were constructed. So. Yeah, it was. So yeah, but,
that was actually. Remember, this was actually before you were working at Stewart's.
Yeah.
It was, I think, my first summer there.
Oh, okay.
And the Argentinian woman.
You told me about her. Yeah.
I don't think I've said it on the podcast. Though.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't even remember her name.
Yeah.
I had her phone number for long enough.
I'm trying to remember. I saw her, but anyways, keep going.
You were there?
I think you told me. I think I didn't meet her. Yeah.
Okay. It was weird. It was like not. Obviously, I'm not really attracted to women, but
she was a little bit older, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She was in her 30s, I think.
Yeah.
It was but it was an Argentinian woman.
Yeah, she was beautiful.
And we were just we just worked. I was selling her camera stuff, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing after work?" And I was like, "Ugh." I was like, oh.
Yeah.
she's and I think she was like, she saw that I was just like whatever. She intuited something that I wasn't into it.
Yeah.
And she was like, just stop, just eat dinner with me. It does not matter to me.
Yeah.
If it's a date or whatever.
Yeah, she just wanted an interaction.
And then I just texted her after work, and she's like, all right, I'll meet you here. And then we met, and then we just talked, and then we just went to the restaurant and then ate, and we're just sitting there. And she turns out she's the film loader for the Coen brothers.
Oh, right. Yeah.
She's the film loader for the Coen brothers. She's talking about how many times she's been to George Clooney's house and all this stuff. In this weird crate, she's just telling me all these stories, and I'm telling her kind of some of my aspirations, and she's like, you should do this and this and this and this. Yeah. And it's just this weird extremely intimately human interaction.
Yeah.
And she was like, she's American, she's from LA, but her parents are Argentinian, and she was telling me about her parents and about her family and how she was telling me story, the dirty war in Argentina. What is his name? Vidal.
Okay. Yeah.
Juan Vidal.
Yeah.
Something Vidal, the dictator who would they still hold the lost children protests in Buenos Aires, where they hold up all the tens of thousands of pictures of men that were lost during this. They would take them and they would torture them in these facilities and then put them in they would put them in 50-gallon drums and fill it with concrete and throw them in rivers. It was just horrible.
Leave it to the Latinos to do
that. I know. Leave it to the South Americans, dude. It's so insane. Yeah. That's the dirty war. Yeah. Something if someone's interested. It was the 70s. The 70s! And this was Hitler did his things in the 40s.
I know, yeah.
And they all came over and then did their thing in the 70s again. But it's the dirty war is worth looking into for people who don't know, because it's extremely Argentinian. But but she was telling me how my uncle was taken to the one of the facilities, and they came back, and then all he could ever say again was that I want to eat potatoes. He was so mentally scarred that all he could say was what he wanted to eat. And how disturbing this was for their family and stuff. And I'm like, it was just such an intense evening. And then she's like, all right, I gotta go back to the hotel. My parents are landing. I'm gonna meet them at the hotel. And I walked her back, and then we said bye. And I never talked to her again.
Yeah.
And you do not have experiences like that.
I know. Yeah.
And it's very rare to have those in American cities.
Yeah.
And I think that I have this pathological drive to interact with people that I shouldn't really be interacting with in the cultural context.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do the same thing. I just start talking to people. Because there's a way that old white guys will start talking to people that's really small talky.
Yeah.
And boring.
Right. Yeah. I can't engage.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Because there's a difference. They're still trying to do something.
Right.
When I bought that woman a cheesecake, a few weeks ago.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We were at the cake studio, and she's there.
Oh, right.
And she's looking, and we get there at the same time. And I'm lean around. And I'm like, hey, let me buy your thing. And she's like, what? Yeah. I'm like, no, just let me buy your thing. And she's like, I'm a married woman.
Yeah,
I'm a gay guy. It's fine. And I bought her thing, and she cried about it. She cried about it.
Yeah.
Openly. And I was like, is this how rare it is that people are just human to each other?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it is.
And I think there's something about this Bronze Age mindset where he intuits that that's the natural state of being for people.
Yeah.
And when he talks about cities, he castigates medieval cities also in a way that I don't think is warranted or properly understood. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, they were diseased. It's like, well, everybody was diseased for all of history. You can't really say that everybody dying of disease all the time was a special quality of medieval cities.
Yeah. No, yeah.
When we didn't know to wash our hands between childbirths until 1880s.
Yeah.
You can't really. Yeah. So I think that's in the work. That's my whole issue. Is there's an omission of historical.
There is, yeah. Because most of them comes in waves, like diseases. Even in modern times, like the AIDS epidemic in California and New York just comes in waves. It was the same thing in the medieval period. It's like, you had diseases, but
COVID. Seriously, if COVID
was actually
if we didn't have the technology to detect it, we would not have known that anything happened.
Right? Yeah, that we wouldn't. It would just be the common flu.
You'd be like, oh wow, that was a bad flu season.
Yeah, yeah. Let's not get into it.
No. Yeah. I'm just. That's a.
Oh, it is. Yeah, but I do think I'm more conspiratorial when the whole thing of COVID.
I know you are. We can talk about it sometime. But still, like with swine flu, it's like if we didn't have the technology to detect these viruses with such accuracy and frequency, we wouldn't know they happened.
Yes. Yeah.
What did 5,000 people die in the U.S. from swine flu or something?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Or SARS and
SARS. I remember that happened. Yeah. Zika virus.
Yeah, nothing happened. Yeah. I mean, some people died, but everybody dies of any disease. You want to. It's just we wouldn't have known they happened ever.
The one thing that he does touch briefly, but he doesn't say as much as I did in the past that pissed people off about modern medicine.
Yeah.
Is that I really do think modern medicine also plays a huge role in the pussification of people.
Of course.
is for two reasons. I think one of them is just pure survival. Mm-hmm. It's like the people who ought to have died out of a very small, I guess, disease or virus or breakage or whatever, we kind of sustain and keep alive. It's like, well, why? Weak people should just die. Not that we ought to be like
we shouldn't
pursuing to kill them, right? Yeah. Yes, but that that we're letting. I think Anne Marie got really upset when I said this, but like we're letting these people get old to the point that we actually see the decrepitness of what death looks like. Yeah. It's like I could
like if you're like a 95-year-old person, yes. You're looking at death all the time.
It's like when you stand next to them, I smelled a dead body before, mm-hmm. and I smell like a person that's being sustained in life because of medication. And the very similar, mm-hmm. it's like a hint of that same dead smell mm-hmm. that these people have. Mm-hmm. It's like we're allowing the corporeal body to continue.
This is very interesting. I haven't thought about it before. Yeah. But my great grandmother mm-hmm. died in 2019.
Yeah.
She was born in 1917.
Yeah. Wow.
So she literally. She was born before the Bolshevik Revolution happened.
Yeah.
And then experienced all of the technological advancement of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And then died in like 2019.
Yeah.
So she essentially she lived through, she was born during the First World War, was like in her 20s during the Second World War, Korea, Vietnam, it's every single president that matters to people now.
Right.
But she'll like talk. She was 11 years old when the toaster was invented. No. She was 11 years old when sliced bread was first commercially available. So when she was actually, the best thing since sliced bread, you call up Marjorie mm-hmm. and you're like, hey, so I heard that this thing is better than sliced bread. Is that true? Because you were 11. And I think maybe if your memory is good enough, you could tell me.
Yeah.
But, she taught shorthand and typing at a university in the 30s.
Nice.
She's a Depression baby. Like
yeah.
I mean, she was 20 years old in 1937.
Yeah.
Like she was an adult.
How old was she when she died?
102. Like
102, yep.
But which is cool.
Yeah.
Then I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Yeah. She naturally would have lived super long.
Yeah.
Because this is my dad's maternal grandmother.
Yeah.
His paternal grandmother lived to 97. His paternal grandfather lived to like 92.
Yeah.
With not a lot of medical help.
Yep.
His maternal grandfather was shot down over France during World War II. It was a whole thing. My name comes from that. But there's like a statue to him in some tiny town in France that I should eventually visit. When I'm rich and famous. But when I can afford that. But after the next 30 years of economic devastation that we're going to experience, when you come out the other end and I'm like a rich guy because I figured out how to save money and be thrifty finally after 30 years of struggle. But anyway, it's extremely cool having conversations with her because she's literally what would that even be? She was like 63 when Reagan was elected. She was extreme Democrat. She worked for Rand Corporation. She literally worked for like a Fed think tank. She is deep state. When she talks about, she gets like stipends from Rand and gets all of their, she gets the calendars and it's portraits of old Rand Corporation, like like heads of Rand Corporation. It's very weird. There's a lot of conspiracies about that, but which is cool to be able to have a conversation. She was lucid up until like 101. So you could have a conversation like, what was it like to live in 1930? And she could just tell you.
Right,
And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Because like documentaries don't do it as much justice as someone who literally lived during that time. It's very cool to have had someone that old that I could be an adult and have conversations with. That it's like having a living history book for that time period.
I agree with you.
Like, what do people think of the Soviets in the 40s? And then they just tell you anecdotes about all their friends talking about the Soviets in the 1940s.
Yeah.
But also, holding her hand was freaky.
Was it?
She puts her hand in your hand. You're like, ooh.
It's like
like you were talking about the smell of the dead. It's the feel of the
the
way that their faces just melt.
Yeah.
and they're just falling off. The flesh doesn't hang to the bones
there
anymore.
isn't. Yeah,
and
I have,
because you see like like that picture of Nancy Pelosi with her giant boobs.
Oh, I know.
The giant boobs, the like Pelosi milkers that was like a big deal on this week.
Yeah,
she's like, but then you look at her hand.
Yeah,
and it's like a freaking like ghoul from Fallout. Like it's like a zombie hand.
No, I know. Yeah,
and she's 20. She's like 80 or something, right?
Is she 80? I didn't know she was that old.
Let me see how old Nancy Pelosi is. So Nancy Pelosi is 82.
Yeah.
She's serving in Congress at 82. No one in history lived to 82. I mean, relatively speaking, but my great grandmother died 20 years later. She lived my entire, like I was born and she was that old.
Yeah.
Pretty much. She was Nancy Pelosi's age when I was born. Yeah. And then lived my entire life until that point, until 2019.
Yeah.
But it's just like you look at the flesh.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be that way.
Right, yeah.
Flesh is not meant. It's almost because all of her friends died.
Yes.
30 years.
Yeah.
She was friendless for 30 years.
Yeah.
20, 30 years, which is like crushing to think about.
Yeah.
But you just shouldn't live that long.
No, unless it just genetically
happens.
Because like, for example, my grandpa lived until 100 years old.
Yeah.
On my mom's side. And he was from Peru, a poor guy from Peru, never took medication.
Just live on.
Yeah, he didn't have to go Lipitor. He didn't,
like she obviously was American. She took some medication, but it was like she was like a person and lucid.
Exactly. Yeah.
Until the end.
Yeah, and I do, and so I have no objection with people living long. I have
maintaining their life unnaturally
through modern medicine. It's like if that is not necessary, if it is their time to go, let it go. Because I think because I've met people like my grandpa that when you see them and they're like 96, they actually don't have that decrepit smell. There's nothing about them that you think it's like, oh, you're actually just decaying before my eyes. And then
I wouldn't say that. It's just there's literally something about the texture of the skin of a person that old.
But I do think that when I meet somebody who is being survived by Lipitor and all these other medications.
Oh, I could tell you all of them. That's all I do now.
Is it? Yeah. It's like, and then you meet them. It's like you literally are a decaying corpse being sustained by these medications. Just die.
Yeah. So this is actually something. And obviously, I won't name the company I work.
Yeah.
They're fantastic to me. Whatever. But I work in the medical field in a specialization where it's a lot of old people and a lot of extremely obese people.
Yeah.
And anyone, like if I get a referral for a patient, it says they're born in 1979. I'm like, how heavy are they?
Yes. Yeah.
But it's weird to me how much pride I feel, because you get they're discharged from the hospital, and then I send people to go see them or whatever, and when I have their little summary you get from the hospital, they're discharged. Like, they're leaving the hospital. Here's all the information you have, and they give you their medication list.
Yeah.
And when I see, I'm like, oh my God, they're only on 4 medications. What a freaking king.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you're in fine. It's like, what, a multivitamin? And
right,
like some aspirin?
Yeah.
But probably on average, probably 25 medications.
Yeah.
We send nurses to see people to manage medication taking.
That's what's fucked up.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It takes me 30 minutes to just type out people's medication lists.
Yeah.
It's insane. And that's, I would say, you're like balls deep in the medical field when you know how to spell all the medication names.
Yeah. And you know how to spell. Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know all of them.
It's disturbing.
Yeah. Because my mom doesn't take them either. I think she's just like her dad. She's just going to live to 100, you know? There's just something about like when you have concentrated evil that you can No, but yeah, and it's just I think when you
and I think BAP would agree. This is a BAP approved.
It is, yes. I don't want people just to think that I'm being a monster here, because I really don't think that I am. I think that there's something very pathetic about somebody holding...
meaningless.
Meaningless, yes. Yeah. About holding on to life
when it's over.
When it's over.
Yeah.
It's like you should be noble enough to accept death.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And when you're not, and you're just trying to scramble every possibility of just gaining that extra day, is like there's something very pathetic about
you
that.
don't appreciate life.
You don't.
At that point. It's like you're why
Yeah.
What, especially when you're in your older ages, in the 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s.
Yeah.
What did you not get out of life that you still want to?
Yeah. That's and I think it's a huge issue.
Mm-hmm.
I know this person now. Obviously, I won't say her name or anything, but who was a chain smoker most of her life. So she got cancer, emphysema really
young.
young.
I know her?
No.
Okay.
She got emphysema very young, and by very young, I just mean like I think she was like 50. Like it's relatively young, right?
Yeah. It's like getting COPD in your 40s.
Yeah. And she sustained her life for like another 10 years. Through medication, having her grandchild wipe her ass as she shat herself in a like breathing tube for years. And I look at that and I'm just like,
why would you subject your loved ones to that?
Yes, it's disgusting. Where is your nobility? Where is your standing in the face of death and being like, good. I will take it.
Like, holy shit! I got to live.
Yes, yeah,
yeah,
and and they just don't have that. I think that movie I told you about. You probably didn't end up watching, but Fences.
I need to. I just don't watch movies. I haven't watched a different movie since then.
Yeah.
So I'm not cheating on the movie. Yeah. I just don't watch.
But like the ending scene where he's accepting death in a very just masculine not I shouldn't say goofy, but like a masculine way where he's like takes his baseball bat, he's like, let's go, let's do this, like, you want to come after me? Fuck it, let's do it. It's like there's something noble about that.
It's like Gran Torino.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
But facing death pathetically is like you're just dragging on the inevitable.
And this is something that BAP actually talks about in Bronze Age Mindset, is the noble death is an acceptance of it.
It is.
I didn't necessarily love his description of it. Like, I wasn't moved by anything he said. I think that he was right a lot, but I wasn't.
Mm-hmm. I laughed more than being moved. Like I think he's a good writer in terms of entertaining me.
Oh no, I think it's extremely entertaining.
Yeah.
I don't think that he would.
But I agree that there's no movement.
He wouldn't have developed the following he had online if he wasn't entertaining.
Right, yes.
I think he's extremely intuitive.
That's the limit of the depth of what he, I think, said. But I think there is
And if someone can be that funny, they see reality.
They do, yes. Because as myself, I always say reality is more of a comedy than is a drama. And so I think there is more humor to it.
Well, it's because the hero always dies.
There is, yes.
The anti-hero always dies.
Yeah. But I do think that this part, for me, is more expansive. It's like the problem of modern medicine, I think, is that it gives us the illusion that life can be sustained for longer than it is needed, and it really doesn't. It just gives you that illusion. It's like you could buy another 10 years, but you're still dying. You're just a walking corpse, barely existing. When you see Biden up there on the stage, it's like you're literally a corpse barely existing. You have no coherent thought anymore.
Well, so he's not even spending his last years doing anything meaningful.
You're not, yes. It's all nonsense. It's all bullshit.
Spend your last years embarrassing an entire nation of 330 million people.
Right, yeah. Just literally shat himself at the Vatican. It's like it's gross.
People were like, well, it's not confirmed. It's like, dude,
he shot himself. But it's just.
Have you watched the video of him interacting with Pope Francis? Yeah. And Pope Francis is like, they're similar ages, aren't they?
Yes, but Francis is much more coherent. He has like the Argentinian machismo about himself that just continues his life in a much more coherent way.
He's 85.
Yes, but you see him talk. He's not as decrepit as him because again, I have no issue with people.
He's an old guy.
Yeah, I have no issue with people living long. I do have an issue with modern medicine sustaining life past what it ought to be sustained.
Sagittarius.
That explains a lot. Yeah.
I was like, why is Pope Francis the way he is?
Yes, yeah.
He's born December 17th.
Oh wow! It's like my brother, December 15th. It's really close. Yeah.
He gets arrested for threatening someone in a Home Depot. Anyway, your brother's not. You can say that. That's whatever.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just that there's
people are gonna be like, what? Anyway,
but yeah, there's something disgusting about modern medicine that I think he should have expanded on more.
Because he did hit it.
He did hit it, but very briefly. It's like, no, there's more to say about it.
Well, it's only 198 pages, so it's a short thing.
Yeah. But he pays so much attention to Darwinism. It's like, no, pay attention to something like this.
Yeah.
Sustaining, the
critique of Darwinism is extremely common.
It is, right, yeah. And it's like, yeah, there's even atheists that reject Darwinism at this point, right? Mm. No, not, I mean, yeah. So, fine. Darwinism is stupid. We don't have to get completely into it, but yeah, there's so many holes just in a very, even using the principle of Darwinism shows that Darwinism is nonsense and bullshit. So, but focusing
I was irritated by his rejection of empiricism and then the entire thing.
Exactly right.
I think that I had that impression early, and then it was hard to shake it and just enjoy the thing.
Yeah,
like, oh my god, it's another appeal to body observation. Well, this is the animal behavior. It's like you're literally doing the same thing. That you just criticized people for doing.
Right.
And I don't know if people are equipped with the framework to operate outside of that right now. I think that he is that Bronze Age pervert is just as much a victim of modernity as he criticizes other people for being.
Yes.
And it's difficult for me to take it too seriously.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're doing everything you are complaining about, you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's probably a most legitimate criticism about him is that he is a victim of modernity. Yeah. And like I said before, the fact that
he knows it.
The fact that he skips a large portion of Western history, like from ancient Greeks to modernity, it was like, yes, you're skipping something very important.
Well, he skips the exact same most of recorded history that everyone else skips.
Yes, exactly.
So I think that I guess we're getting into kind of the final assessment of the work.
Yeah.
I guess as we could kind of start wrapping up. But to me, it is the writings of a person.
Yeah.
And of course, we're assessing just the work. We're not assessing all of the content produced on Twitter and elsewhere.
Right. Yeah.
Beyond it.
Yeah.
By him and his followers. This is just like I said at the beginning, it's just like a very honed cultural, internet, archaeological kind of exploration of this thing in hindsight. To me, it seems like the writings of a person who had the intimations of truth, but was either not equipped or refused to take them to their extent. And of course, it happened 4 years ago, so it's not like this person couldn't ever get there, but now that he's inactive online, it's very hard to.
Yeah, and like what I would say is that I think a lot of his observation of the criticisms of contemporary society is very accurate.
Yes,
so the things I
accurate but unfocused.
Yeah, so that I wouldn't object to. His prescriptions for it, I think, are lacking because
he has no knowledge of the medieval period.
Yeah, he has no knowledge of what actual Christianity is.
And I guess I don't remember how well I articulated this thought earlier.
Yeah.
We're getting near 2 hours, so I don't know exactly what I was saying at the beginning.
Okay, yeah.
But
I'm still energized, so.
Oh, I'm good. We can go for a while.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just literally. I don't remember what I was saying 2 hours ago. But the wine is talking to me. But or talking for me. But anyway, it's someone who observes. It's like what of Western history and thought is not at least touched by Christianity for the last 2,000 years.
Right.
None of it.
Yeah.
Literally 0 AD, boom, it's Christianity.
Yeah.
All of it, forever.
Yeah.
Christ is the central figure of all of Western history, whether you are properly Christian or heretic or an atheist or whatever.
Yes. Yeah,
literally the central figure of the entire culture.
Or even a Mohammedan.
Whatever. It's it's the central figure.
Is Christianity.
Is Christianity.
Christ,
For half of world population, if you grew up even in Africa now.
Yeah.
It's like the only place that's not necessarily the case is like East Asia.
Yeah.
Really, I mean India up to like the Koreas.
I'm surprised how a lot of like from India people I've met that have encountered Christianity very heavily though.
It's weird. It's like literally Christ is the central,
everywhere,
literally the central global figure.
It is,
in global mythology. Oh, South Koreans are extremely Protestant.
I know, yeah.
It's because if you don't know what Christianity is pre-Reformation, or adjacent to Reformation, so like obviously like Polish people, they're like 87% Catholic,
right? Yeah.
They understand Christianity beyond a Reformation or a Protestant.
Yeah.
They don't conceive of Christianity in a Protestant way.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's from. The reason he has to be from a Protestant country.
I think so.
He has to be.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't ignore
Aquinas.
Who wouldn't ignore 1,500 years of history?
Augustine, Boethius.
Yeah. The only reference he makes to the Greeks to modernity is like random figures.
Yeah. And if he was from the East, he would at least know like Athanasius.
He would do. There would be something. It would be something, and that was my main criticism. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many figures that contributed to thought both in the East and the West that he could have, if he was like Croatian, he would at least know these Eastern patristics, which he doesn't. Does he know Gregory of Nyssa? He doesn't ever talk about him.
Which is weird to be Eastern European and not know who that is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, like they think that he's Romanian or think that it's like, Romanians are like 80% Romanian Orthodox.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to know who these people are.
Yeah.
So I think your assessment that he's American is like, has to be American.
Yeah, he has to be. He's far too ignorant that he just didn't mention any of these thinkers. It's like none of them. Okay, well, there's again, it reminds me of every undergrad person.
Yeah, you texted me that. It just sounds like an undergrad.
Yeah, somebody who
undergrad Nietzschean.
Yeah, who encountered Nietzsche, a little bit of Foucault. Obviously Polya.
And intuited their own thing. Yeah. There is a weird crossover. Well, he does reference Polya.
He does. Yeah, that's what I mean.
I think that structurally there's a similarity with Polya. He has to be inspired by Polya in some way.
To a very minimal way. Or it is what I said in our episode, is that the only way you could get any affirmative claim out of Polya is inferences.
Well, no, his love of like pagans is extremely
and so I think it's his inferences of Polya.
No, but that's what I'm saying is there's an aesthetic. Aesthetic.
And so in that way I agree. I agree.
He's of the aesthetic tradition of like sexual personae.
Yeah. He obviously is a fan. Me, he obviously read her.
Yes.
And he inferred more than she ever implied. And so he reads more into it because that's the only way to get something out of Polya. Polya is so vapid in her
sexual personae.
Or sexual Polya, it doesn't matter, but it's so vapid in her writing that it's like you must as a reader infer truths that she is stating because she actually never states a fucking truth.
In sexual personae.
Yeah. She just gives you a
description.
A description.
It's beautiful. It's like, well,
fine,
written.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But then the reader has to infer a conclusion from that, and this is what he did. And so his inspiration of Polya is mostly his own inferences.
So there's something very feminine
state.
About that because the woman trademark just knows things.
Yes.
In the way that Polya wrote sexual persona, you can tell she just knows this and describes it.
Yeah.
And doesn't articulate what she knows as much as she describes it.
Yeah.
Which is very feminine.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's a very feminine book, but in that way, which is the reason that I'm not mad about it.
Yes.
This is written by a woman, whatever. It's just that it's very descriptive, and that's kind of what women are good at.
It is, but I guess I've read men that wrote that way. Like Foucault really is that way. Yeah. I think it's beyond her femininity. I think it is an academic movement to not actually state anything, to believe that descriptive realities of historical, I guess, happenings or whatever you term want to use that, but historical realities can speak for itself. And so, like, if you realize,
it's very Protestant.
It is. Like, Daston and Gelson also wrote this book called Aesthetics. And you read it, and they explicitly say that as their goal. Is like, we're not trying to make broad universal claims. We're trying to give you descriptions of aesthetics given, like botanists and biological textbooks, blah, 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 of things. And then in the end, it's like, we're not relativists, because we're not saying that is just simply relative, but they're not trying to make claims at all, but they're trying to give descriptions, and from that it speaks for itself. And it's bullshit in the end. It's like, no, if I'm standing here and be like, there is an object before me who has a variant of colors, and this variant of colors I interact with in order for it to, I can't even say that has a causal reality, but I guess that I socially accept as a reality that inputs information into something else, is like, that's simply a mere description, rather than simply saying, when I type on this keyboard, it puts fucking things on the screen.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you're not making any actual claims. You're trying to give descriptive realities without affirming a conclusion from that.
Yeah.
And that's what I find just
annoying.
Gravely irritating.
So do you think that this kind of thing is what Polya would have written had she said anything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a much coherent text. At least I could look at it. I could pick apart. I could see, well, is this actually factually true? I could look at historical context, because he's actually making statements, and with that, I could.
This historical event means this about human nature,
and he says that completely throughout the text, constantly. Yes, and
men do this, and men do this, and men do this, and men do this because of all these.
Yes, and I'll say that's actually events. Saying things, and from there we could agree, disagree. There's a lot of things I agree with him. There's a lot of things I think are lacking that could actually bolster his ideas,
or correct it,
right? Yeah, he could correct his ideas if he actually knew anything about
the medieval period,
the medieval philosophy and ideas of masculinity that so many partook in that time. And so there's many things I think could make this a much more strong and coherent text. But at least he's saying things, and and again, I think his claims of masculinity is good. I think we need to, culturally, I agree with him. I would say, as a culture and society, we need to embrace these kinds of lesser goods that that foster greatness within man, and we don't. Right. We and not to go to the same rant, but when we look at someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, is like somebody who didn't know the language, somebody who simply worked his ass off, worked out and got huge, and then got popular by fucking being strong. That I would think he won Mr. Universe or Mr. World, whatever. Yeah. And then said, "Yeah, I'm just gonna fucking act." He didn't. He speaks with this messed up fucking accent, but then he became a movie star. He then he said, "I'm gonna become a governor of a country in which I was not born in," and he became governor of fucking California. You look at somebody like that and be like, as a society,
during in the work.
Yeah,
Bronze Age Pervert does this thing where he's like, imagine Mitt Romney.
Yes, he does. Yeah,
I don't remember. I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, but like Mitt Romney achieves unimaginable levels of power in the U.S. and then is outed for hosting like a satanic dinner.
Yes, yeah.
So he flees to Russia.
Yes,
and then he becomes powerful in Russian government. But then it turns out that he's fucking Putin's wife.
Yes,
so then he's ousted to China.
Yeah.
And then from there he goes to Afghanistan. And then he dies in battle against the globalists in Afghanistan. It's like a similar kind of thing.
It is, yeah.
It's like he's like imagine Mitt Romney doing that.
Yes, yeah.
Which is weird because if he makes a metaphor about Mitt Romney, you have to be American.
You have to. That's what I mean.
No one in Europe cares about Mitt Romney.
Yeah. Mitt Romney was a milquetoast candidate.
He's either not American and entirely obsessed with American culture and
which
news.
is less likely.
Yeah.
But yeah, he talks about Trump quite a bit as well. That basically Trump is a good figurehead, but he didn't go far enough. He didn't manifest his masculinity altogether.
Agreed. Yes,
which I would agree. Yeah,
he played in the system too much.
He did. Yeah,
but he could have cooed the whole thing.
He could have. Yes, which would have been. I don't want to get into it because I'm going to cry.
We are going to a Trump rally tomorrow.
Yes, yeah.
We'll have to talk about what time we're in.
Oh man, I don't want. Okay, but yes, we'll go there.
We're going
done so much, man. He could have led that. He could have fucking been in the forefront, man. Get arrested. He doesn't give a shit, you know. But yeah, that is. I agree with him there. Yeah. It's like the man that does that, right? The man who doesn't give a shit. You know, the Diogenes who tells
he talked about Diogenes.
He does,
all
yes,
the time
he did.
In the
Diogenes who goes to fucking Alexander the Great and said, "You're in my fucking way. I'm trying to enjoy the sun." It's like that's the attitude of masculinity that we saw in Trump. That's the masculinity that people see, and that's the kind of masculinity that women want to fuck, right? It's the one who just doesn't give a shit about that, and the fact that now. We have like this limp church, right? And then this is what bothers me. It's like we have this limp church that doesn't foster that anymore. It doesn't. It's like, no, we're lacking somewhere. Where is the fucking cardinal finding Trump his next mistress? Where are these people that are just engaging with reality? And fostering pure masculinity to drive greatness out of people, because that is where it comes from, whether we like it or not. The ones who can achieve greatness are monstrous in their behavior,
and that's what BAP is saying this whole time.
Is that's what it is. Right? I come from a fucking poor ass background. I have parents who are illegal immigrants. You know, I lived in a van for almost an entire year driving around with them while my dad was trying to find work. In order to have achieved any fucking thing, I had to become a monster. Yeah. Right? You had to look at reality.
Yes, you are one.
Yes. And you had to be like, I have to control this. Your environment of not having anything. I had no connections. I had nobody to leave me wealth. I had nothing. Anything in which I was able to achieve was because of monstrous behavior. And that's what it means to be a man. It's like you take your environment and you're like, fuck it. You want to come after me? What are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me? Honestly, that's always been my question. I mean, I was in high school and somebody laughed at me because I was doing something I wasn't supposed to. I said, just don't do that. I was like, what are they going to do to me? Are they going to rape me? Okay, I dare them.
I'll pull my pants.
Yes. Stop me, right? Because if I didn't have that mentality, I would be a loser like my brother. If I didn't have the mentality, I would have not manifested fucking anything. Because the only way to stop me is to kill me. Yeah. And I say this repeatedly. I was like, you want to fucking stop me? Then kill me.
Knowing you, that's literally true.
Yes.
People might think you're not.
No,
No.
No, it's not metaphorical. Yeah, you want to stop me from something. I see something and I take it. Yeah. Right? It's one of the movie scenes that I related to the most. Yeah. You know, in There Will Be Blood. Yeah. We talked about that milkshake scene. I was like, yeah. That's reality. It's like you see somebody, they have a milkshake. I'm going to take your milkshake. I'm going to build this fucking long straw and I'm going to suck the fucking milkshake out of you. And that is the way that you have to exist. And in order to achieve anything at all, when you come from nothing, you could either die with nothing or you could become a monster and overtake what other people have. And that's the only options. Yeah.
And BAP is saying that the entire time in Bronze Age mindset.
Yes. And this part, I would say he's 100% and absolutely correct. Yeah. And the only way you know that, honestly, is when you do come from a state of nothing. Because I know what it's like. I've seen my dad work 15, 16 hours a day for a fucking boss who doesn't appreciate it. You know, I've seen him sacrifice everything that he had to provide for his family. Right? And
So Joshua Hamm has been commenting for a while.
Okay.
And I didn't see because I really don't like to see myself on the stream. So I've been I've been lightly monitoring. He says that Bap is a South American.
Oh, is he? Probably. or probably has parents from South America. Because a lot of us have seen that. And this is the thing, is that when you come from those immigrant parents and you've seen you've seen what it took to survive. Like my mom had to be an utter monster. You know, the fact that...
Well...
Yes, yeah. And you met her, yes. But there's no other way to have survived.
Yeah.
Right? When she was running, so when the coyotes walk you to the fucking border...
Yeah.
My mom was telling me this story when I was younger. She said, there's a point where they say, corre, run.
Yeah.
And they run. And that's the only option you have. You know how many people she saw fall over fucking dead? Because right before that, they were crawling through sewers. They were crawling through everything without any fucking food.
Yeah. And
then she saw her friend fall down and break her fucking ankle. And at this point, she had two options. Am I going to leave her to die? Mm-hmm. The person that I bonded with in this trip? You have to remember, my mom was like 4'11". Mm-hmm. She is short.
She is probably the shortest person I've ever met in my life.
When she was younger, she was petite. You're talking about like an 80-pound woman. Mm-hmm. Picks up another woman, puts her on her back and be like, I'm not going to let you die. And she ran with her. Mm-hmm. You have to be a fucking monster to do that.
Yeah.
You have to not care about the rules. You don't even have to care about the rules of fucking gravity. Mm-hmm. You fucking go and you continue. When she was 70 years old, she was working at Fred Meyer. She fell off the ladder and broke her ankle. You know what she did? She wrapped it up and she continued to work. Mm. That's what it takes.
But it's also the experience that people are missing now.
They are. They're missing that.
There's no desperation.
There's none of that.
Mm-hmm. Life isn't a gift, and you really don't know how much of a gift life is unless you're desperate for it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And you also don't know what it takes to fucking win. Mm-hmm. And when the reason why I think Trump got the most Latino votes in the history of any GOP candidate was that. Mm-hmm. Is because he's only difference in degree. He's not a difference in kind.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, he started out wealthy, but he knows what it takes. You know, if he has to fucking, give up a business and file for bankruptcy, he's going to do that. Mm-hmm. He hired many of these people. He just raised, he does what it takes to survive. And every Latino, I would not have this business. I would not have the job if I was not an utter monster. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't. Yeah. I would just be a loser. Mm-hmm. I'll be out and complaining that things aren't fucking fair. I don't care about fairness. I want inequality.
It's really funny.
What?
Jordan Peterson is constantly saying you have to be a monster.
Does he really?
That's the phrase he uses. Yeah. He's literally the one person. We had a discussion with Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
It made him admit he believes in God.
Yes.
We could end the show.
Yes.
It'd be over. We just be done. That's it.
Yeah.
The one guy. That's it.
Yeah.
The one.
That's pretty interesting.
The
actually.
one convert. Yeah. Really, because he constantly talks about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very Jungian because that's actually Bap's kind of conclusion.
Yeah.
Is that it will take a certain group of men, very few.
Yeah.
Diving into the depths of hell and returning.
Yes. Yeah.
To change anything.
Yeah.
That's very Jungian.
It
is.
You
or Petersonian or whatever.
Yes.
You go into the belly of the whale to rescue your father and come out.
Yes.
And then,
but this is the part that I find so lacking in his theory because this is exactly what Christ is.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Like literally Christ suffered the entire debt of everybody's sin.
Yeah.
And is said in the Catholic faith, descended to fucking hell.
Yeah.
Only to come back up, to destroy hell and to rise again. This is masculinity. Mm-hmm. Christianity is not lacking in masculinity. Christianity is the fulfillment of what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
What it means to endure suffering to the point of death, and not only dying, but to destroy death, to go to the depths of hell to rise again. This is what's beautiful about it. This is what I think is magnificent about Catholicism, that he doesn't get, and he doesn't put it in the text. And so, yes, to be a monster is to be Christ. Christ was a fucking monster.
But because he can't make the distinction, he doesn't say that.
Yes.
It's like, well, you're talking about Christ.
Yes, you are. He's somebody who
your Ubermensch or whatever is Christ.
Is Christ already.
Yes.
He was the one that didn't give a shit about the rules. He's the one that did that rejected everything and established truth and reality through his monstrous behavior.
I think it's one of the most beautiful things I can imagine.
Yeah.
Is that Christ, even Christ.
Yes.
You know, the God, why have you forsaken me?
Yes, yeah.
Even Christ had a moment of despair.
Yes, yeah.
Even Christ.
Yeah. And not only even Christ, as what's his name? Fuck, I forgot. Is the theologian, Vatican II theologian? He's
I don't know.
Anyways, he
Balthazar?
No. Balthazar, yes.
Yeah.
So he describes this moment even more intrinsically than that. It isn't that even Christ had to do it, that Christ purposefully suffered absolute evil in this point. The complete privation of his Father, the complete privation of God, in order to enter death and damnation. This is what's beautiful about it. I mean, you cannot enter damnation and hell without being a complete monster, you know, without being somebody who embraces everything.
Well, it's not even that you are a monster, it's that it makes you a monster.
And that you absorbed all of that. You absorbed all of sin. And when people say that, you know, I don't think they know what that means. You are literally a sin eater. This is what Christ is. He absorbs everybody's sin, damnation itself, in order to destroy it. Beautiful.
And I think the gravity of that, to me, is made the most apparent in knowing that it's the only question I've ever asked you that has left you completely answerless.
Yes, yeah.
How can Christ be completely God, but then partake of completely of non-being?
Yes,
well, then he isn't God anymore. But that's heretical.
Yes,
so you're just like,
yes, yeah. How
it's that inconceivable.
It is, yeah.
Because this is my. Yeah, I kind of want to. I don't remember exactly when you made the point and what you were saying, but the church is failing to cultivate these men. Yeah. And I think that the fundamentally the most compelling feature of Catholic theology, that, or to me, is that it is the only religion that says you're a sack of shit. Yeah. But that's fine. It's really the only one. Yeah. And I think the problem is that, Catholic theology, you're a piece of shit. Yeah. And the only way that it matters is Christ. Yes. The church now is unwilling to say that. Yes. Yeah. They're unwilling to let people, there's a flip side. It's just, you're a sack of shit. The church needs to tell you that. Yes. And the church won't now. And I think that's because that's, that bishop in San Francisco that refuses communion. Yes. Pelosi, he says, you're a sack of shit. Yes. Stop. Yes. And I'll let you eat Christ. Yes. It's essentially, it's essentially, it's really, exactly. It's kind of a vulgar way to say it, but
no, but that's
what literally it is. It's like, you're a sack of shit. Stop being such a sack of shit. Yeah. And then I will give this to you again. Yes. Yeah. And then she goes to the Vatican. Even the Vatican is not willing to say that. I know. That's the problem. Yeah. And that's the one problem.
And that's what I was saying is that the biggest problem really is that is the sentiment.
It's really the only problem because doctrinally they're fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's the fact that they're unwilling to condemn anything.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. It's almost in like pussifying men. They've pussified the church in a way because doctrinally they're within bounds.
Right. Yes. But the way they're behaving, it is pussified.
It is.
And a lot of times when you see these people, it's like we need to both just say it out loud. You're a piece of shit. You're sinning. You're living in sin. fucking go to confession.
Because the problem with the church not telling people that is they take offense when the church says it.
I know.
It's like, no. This is Catholicism.
Yes, yeah.
You should know this.
Yes, yeah. It's just true. And we're just again we are allowing certain behaviors to happen and not happen, but we're also not able, as you were saying, to simply condemn certain actions. Yeah. And we should be able to.
While allowing them to happen.
Right, while allowing them to happen. And I think that's what normally existed in medieval Europe before Protestantism, and then especially after the Council of Trent, was that this sentiment just disappeared. Mm-hmm. But when you look at that Saint Andreas, the one that I told you about, the womanizing priest who had multiple children from many women that he was fucking, it was like after Vatican II, stuff like that was harder to like understand.
Yeah,
it was like, what was the I mean, after the Trent, it was hard to understand. I was thinking, what was the goodness in this person? The goodness in this person was that he never made idol of it. In the end, he said, a womanizer.
This makes me a sack of shit. Yeah.
Yeah. But a heretic never. Yeah. And he was able to die for the truth. That's what's beautiful about it. And the fact that, we're going to demonize somebody who did something even less than him. When you look at Schwarzenegger's life, he only produced one child from a mistress. And yet we demonize him as being a sack of shit, worse than anybody, and we can't even
not deserving of salvation.
Yeah, not deserving of anything at all. It's like, fuck you guys. Honestly, is that this puritanical nonsense just needs to stop. Like I hark on that a bit. Some people might get annoyed. Some people might not truly understand it. But the point is that Puritanism, in many ways, is a death of basic Catholic of moral theology. Yeah, is that no, these actions are not unforgivable. These actions are not ones in which has no sense of at least acceptance within reality. It's like we have to acknowledge that, because if not, you get this crazy shit. We either go way out there where we're accepting, the trans movement and all this shit, or we go to the puritanical sense where we're saying that any kind of deviation is unforgivable. It's like, no, what I want to see again, where is the cardinal getting Trump as next mistress? That's what I want to see. I know that is wrong. I know that he ought not to do that. Yeah. But the sentiment that exists in there is much more normal and coherent with human behavior than somebody cutting off their fucking dick, putting a dress on, and saying that they're a woman. Yeah. Is that one of them is insane, truly, and the other is a deviation from what ought to be. And we must. Just like the one who eats that extra chicken leg, and and that extra cheesecake is a deviation of proper.
This is funny.
Eating.
Is that knowing myself? I'm way more deviant in my eating habits than I am.
Than
I am being like a sodomite.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
It's like literally, I eat worse than I am gay.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's very hard to explain to people.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that,
it's like, no, I'm a fat guy.
If the church has room for that in its pastoral prudence, we ought to have pastoral prudence for the fornicators and adulterers, and we don't. Yeah. And
it's
I
very
think
corrupt of them.
It's corrupt, and I think it actually causes more damage. The fact that most Western countries have 60 to 70% divorce, and you look at the Mohammedans that don't, there's something fucking wrong there. Yeah. Right? And I don't want to go into the rant of divorce again because I did in the other episode. But the fact that
this is the spiritually dying of AIDS episode.
Yes, yeah. But the fact that socially we find that more acceptable is gross. If we find that more acceptable than fucking Schwarzenegger, gross. No, that should not be the case. It should never be the case that's more acceptable, because in the end of the day, one of them is partaking in a disorder, while the other one is partaking in absolute depravity of goodness. And that's...
Well, I think what you're describing is the whole reason that this show works the way it does.
Right, yes, yeah.
Is that I don't know what it is, but you and I are like wired in a way that I can see you in all of your ridiculousness, and you can see me in all of my ridiculousness.
Yes, yeah.
And we just get it, and it's fine.
Yes, yeah.
And we just send a ha-ha or an LOL back in text. You're like, hey, I just did this super gross, disgusting thing.
Yeah.
We're like, ha. That's dumb of you.
Yes, exactly.
Let's go drink.
Yeah. But then when I read
it's
him,
like, oh my God forbid that be my responsibility to judge. God damn.
But when I read like broad age mindset, that's what I take from it.
Yeah.
It was like, yes, there is a mindset that needs to be back adopted in society. And that is of the masculine and that is of the feminine. Yeah. And that they both must exalt their virtues, even in the state of viciousness.
The greatest mistake a political organization could make is to incorporate the feminine.
Yes, yeah.
Because what did he say? Something like, women ought not be involved in political, organizations of reformation because they incorporate like a sexual competition that has no place in politics.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that politically we are just so just socially I think we're so backwards in what is accepted, right? Because like I was writing to somebody on Twitter about it, but I was like, can you imagine, right? Can you, like, we look at many of these politicians, especially in a Protestant nation like ours, can you imagine like a person running for president and saying that I submit and abide by the laws of Rome, by the Bishop of Rome? Do you think he could ever truly win? No, he can't. And then
he would have an extremely fanatical base.
Extremely,
one in 5 people are Catholic in the U.S. or something.
But there's no way he could win with that position, right? And then it's the same thing with other deviations of their behavior. Is like if there was a guy and be like, yeah, I'm married, but I also fucked this dude on the side, but I don't give a shit. Do you think he could win? No.
That's why it's such a miracle that Trump won.
Yes. But the only reason why he won is because he was divorced. Honestly, because in this country and in the Western world, we think divorce as being more prudent than if he simply had 3 other mistresses on the side. And that's the perversion. That's the perversion that I'm saying socially and in the church. We need to invert that back to its normal state. Is that what Bron James Pervert is saying is that what does the masculine man do? He conquers.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right, he conquers towns, cities, and women. This is his natural state of being.
I thought that really appealed to my kind of my affinity for Jung was that.
Yes, yeah.
He essentially, I think it's the last few lines of Bronze Age Mindset. He says something about the reformers of the New World, the Bronze Age men, they descend into hell and depravity, but keep their eyes on the North Star or whatever he says, and then come back out and remember why they did. Yeah, it's pretty beautiful. It's beautiful.
I agree.
I think I think that all the intuitions are correct, but he's factually wrong.
But again, this is what the medieval Catholics understood. And that's why the rulers were that way. Yeah. That's why when you look at somebody like in the Old Testament, when you look at David, because he even uses that example. He was like, when are you going to see a ruler? But he said, like, Trump doesn't take it far enough.
Murders a guy to marry his wife.
Yeah, murders a guy to marry his wife. We don't see that anymore. No. Right?
It was normal for all of
it was normal, yes. Yeah. Because that is what conquerors do. That's what men do. They see something and they take it. They become a monster and they take it. And when we try to deny that reality, we get now. Yeah. We get pussification
we try
of
to
men.
paint a veneer over
we do.
reality.
Yeah, pussification of men, bunch of faggotry, bunch of, people masturbating, watching fucking pornography,
nerdishness,
rather than trying to find a woman to conquer or many women to conquer.
Yeah.
He's just, I'm just going to masturbate in my room while watching fucking porn on my phone.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck is wrong
I think
with
his phrase was masturbating with plastic on dick.
It's disgusting. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like that's more depraved. That's more depraved than, David killing a man and taking the wife. This gross, pitiful, pussified man just needs to be eradicated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the church needs to be more broadly accepting of not condoning behavior, but simply accepting it as a reality, accepting that war happens, accepting that fornication happens,
it's like
accepting that conquering happens.
The church refuses to accept that we live in a fallen world just as much as everybody else does.
Yes,
right now.
yeah. And that's the part that bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
And whether a conservative thinks that therefore I am liberal, fine, you call me whatever fucking label you want to call me. But the problem is that I think that the sentiment needs to fucking change. We need to accept the conquering man. We need to accept the feminine female. We need to accept these qualities rather than accepting grosser qualities like masturbation and divorce. These things are just gross in its nature. It's not real. It's disgusting. It's fantasy, and it should not exist. We rather than being kind of leaning on the masturbator, we should be leaning on the conqueror, the one who takes land, the one who takes what he wants, the one who fucks what he wants to fuck.
I really liked his. I actually really enjoyed his point about Napoleon being out of his own time.
Yes, he was. Yeah,
that no one in the newly modern world knew how to react to Napoleon because he was a man of a previous era.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought
it's like everybody should be their own, like just be Napoleon.
Yeah.
In their own life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. But like I said, I think he talked about a lot of things that we did talk about.
But it's weird. It's weird because it's in the same way that like Ace or somebody, we agree practically on a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah.
But does it matter if the reasons we agree are not the same?
Yes, yeah. I do think it does in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the end, like I said,
well, it's because the reason I arrive at truth is not relevant.
Yeah.
If it's truth.
I think it is relevant though.
So what did you just say?
Because I think at the end it does matter, the fact that we don't reach in the same way.
Okay. I meant, does truth matter? I'm like, wait, what do you?
Oh yeah. Truth matters, but the way we come, it does, because again.
Because then, how do you discover truth from there?
Because in a way, how can I put it? When you discover the monstrous quality about yourself, that's not the end of the story. To me, what it seems like, what he says, that's the end of it. It's like you discover this monstrous, dominating character, and that's what you should foster. That's not the thing.
Well, it's who rescues you from being a monster.
Because exactly.
It's Christ.
It's Christ. Yes, because you becoming a monster is the recognition of your limits. Right. And when you realize that if you are a very masculine man, the one thing I could guarantee that you realize is that there really is no limit to your behavior, that your behavior can be this unto death. Right? The only limiting factor is somebody fucking killing you. That is the only limiting factor.
You can be as disgusting and evil as.
And when you realize that, the moment you become a man and no longer a monster is when you learn how to fucking control that. Is when you say, fuck it. I see what I am capable of, and I'm going to use it when it's necessary for the good. But let me use it for the good, because if I keep using it for evil, it's going to be the destruction of everything. And that's when you become man. And so when you see Christ as fully man, fully realized, is because he has the limitless quality of his behavior. There is no limit. He can endure all things, even through death. But when does he become man? When he uses it for the good. He is fully man because he is without sin. He is fully man because it is always.
Well, I think that's,
his monstrous behavior is always towards the good.
Well, the 20th century was an example of
monstrous behavior untamed.
Monstrous behavior completely unchecked.
Yes. And that's not what makes you good. That's not.
It was essentially what if we throw God off of our backs.
Yes.
What can we do?
And that's what happens. Yeah. It's disgusting. That's not that's not the goal. And what he's saying is that's the goal. And it's like, this is why it's important that you have the proper metaphysics. Because when you understand that, no, that's not the end of the story. The end of the story is how you utilize the monstrous behavior.
The danger in Bronze Age mindset. The book.
Yeah.
And whether people do not take Bronze Age mindset seriously in the way they take Nietzsche serious. It's a very niche thing.
Yeah.
It's an internet thing.
Yeah.
And if you're on the internet, you're aware of it, but it's not Bronze Age mindset will not proliferate throughout the culture the way that Thus Spake Zarathustra will.
Yes, yeah.
Or did or whatever. It's a much more niche thing.
Yeah.
But the danger, if it did in the same way, is it would cause yet another 20th century.
Yes, it would. Yeah.
Because it's completely unguided.
It is. Yeah.
It's a man with the proper intuitions without any knowledge of truth.
Yes. Yeah.
Per se.
Yeah.
Unleashing intuition. The 20th century is what happened after Nietzsche and his kind of cohort unleashed intuition on the world.
Yes.
Completely unbridled.
With the death of God and the death of
it's just intuition. It's just this subjective intuition. That's literally the Soviet Union is what happens when you unleash subjective intuition on the world.
Yeah.
And that's the sense I get from Bronze Age mindset.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like there's a danger in it.
Yeah. And I think the danger is because of that. Yeah. And the reason why the feudal system existed for over 1,000 years is because it really did tame that. And without that church guidance,
the thing with the feudal system is it threatened.
It did, yeah.
Slave and master with each other.
It did, yeah.
In immediate proximity.
Yeah. And it understood everything that he was saying, but it also understood all the truths of Christ. And from there you have man. Yeah. Right? You have man more fully realized. And right now he just has the monster side. And I'm saying that monster side is important. I agree that the pussified man is lacking that. The contemporary man is lacking all of the monstrous nature that it means to be man. But without the dignity of goodness, without understanding virtue and goodness, the monster unchecked, it's just destructive. There's nothing really good that can truly come out of it. And so it's a synthesis of that. It's a synthesis of...
Or you can't orient the monsters towards the good without any...
Yeah. And and I think that's basically what that text is really lacking. But yeah.
Well, that is a good conclusion.
I think that is, yeah.
All right, well, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.